What is up, everyone? What is up? Happy Monday, I guess. Does Mondays suck? What's everyone up to? Hope everyone had a great weekend. What's up, Kara? How you doing, bud? Yeah, it's been a long day, I guess you could say. Still getting... It's weird. It's like I've been back about a week from DEF CON, and I still feel like I haven't gotten back into the flow. Probably going to be at another con in a couple months. We'll see about that. I got some chips here, the protein chips, because, yeah, I haven't... I didn't have dinner yet. Just flashing a USB. Like, you know, lifting your shirt flashing, or... No, I'm kidding. What's up, Juan Key David? I hope I said that right. Yeah, it's been a long day. I don't know if I'll be staying on the full, like, till 11 tonight, like I usually do, but, we'll figure out where we go from, there. Some reason, Twitch decided to be a little weird. Oh, you know, gotta show USB what my milkshakes do. I gotta add that sound to my, soundboard over here. Thanks for reminding me. I gotta add that. There's still, like, a few spaces here for, you know, the different sounds I have, like, you know.
To the window, to the walls, till the sweat drips right on down my balls.
Yeah. That'd be funny, you know. A milkshake brings other girls to the yard, boys to the yard. What's up, Chris Unchecked? You gotta add milkshakes to the soundboard? Yeah, of course. I've got, like, tons of soundboards over here. I can add a whole other page of other funny, you know, effects. Like, I even got, like, you know... You also have, you know, a few others. All the fellas to the yard. Yeah. And then we'll probably get into playing a little game in a little bit, too. As well, once we cover a few other things that I did want to talk about. Did you hear that, the UK is going after 4chan for the UK Online Safety Act? What's his face? The Prime Minister over there, I think it's Keir Starmer. He's a schmuck. Have I tried ReactOS? Yeah, I have. In fact, we talked about it in another stream where... Put it up right here. There's ReactOS right there on my virtual machines. I was one of the people that was still talking about ReactOS. I think I was one of the few, if not first people to talk about it on TikTok. And I re-brought the Hannah Montana Linux trend, amongst others. 4chan is still around. Yeah, they're still around. And 4chan, let me see if I can pull this up. I saw that 4chan had a letter that they had written. And here's the thing. Say what you will about 4chan. Not particularly a fan of a lot of the shenanigans that go on there. But you don't mess with 4chan. Hold on, let's see. Ofcom. I'm trying to find the 4chan UK response. Let's see if I can pull up the response letter here. Yeah, they were trying to sue the 4chan for violations of the UK Online Safety Act. The problem is the 4chan does not have any operations, nor do they specifically target the UK. But also what's interesting is Cloudflare has been silently blocking many sites with error code 451, which is actually a baked-in legal code, technical code. That means it's been blocked for legal reasons. But yeah, here's what I can find so far. Yeah, they had this on investigation into online discussion board 4chan. And this is where we're going to start seeing the UK overextending themselves and overplaying their hand. Because the reality is, the UK doesn't seem to understand they're actually not a major market. Yes, they are a market in terms of digital goods and everything, but a lot of the companies they're going to try to regulate aren't in the UK. If anything, the UK Online Safety Act is going to drive a lot of digital services away from the UK if they have to comply with these kinds of laws. It's a problem. But yeah, they put some information notices out. God, can you make your site a little bit more accessible? No, can't do that in the UK. Blocking 4chan did and all the rascals went over to 8chan. 4chan still exists, more or less, but it was kind of funny that they did that. So, yeah, they brought that investigation about, trying to find the response. Maybe... No, I'm not going to, you know... But also, 4chan is based in Delaware. I know when I was looking at that, I should have saved the link that I found. But 4chan basically, more or less, was saying, in regards to this, that they're a United States-based company in Delaware outside of the jurisdiction, as well as, say what you will about Trump being a schmuck. He is a schmuck. He is a putz. We will not deny this. But he was right in standing up and saying that if they do go after United States companies, you know, that's going to be a can of worms they don't really want to open up. And in the vein of all of this stuff happening as well, it should be known that apparently Ohio had snuck into their bill, their spending bill, the restriction on accessing adult content without an ID. So I think that brings us up to the total of 17 or 18 states with these, what I would regard as unconstitutional laws to hinder First Amendment rights. Of course, it's been brought up to the Supreme Court, and they said, no, it's not a hindrance, and that's because these are old frickers that are incompetent and ignorant of the way the technology still works. What do you think of email aliases and VoIP and Proton VPN? Well, you're kind of loading a lot of things in there. Email aliasing is fine. I use it. I like the fact that Proton actually has simple login built in, so it makes aliasing really easy. I've been doing aliasing for many years when I ran my own email server, and then moved it over to Proton. VoIP, I mean, you're leaving a very broad question there, so I'm not sure what specifically you're asking about VoIP. And what about Proton VPN? I mean, it works okay to get around geo-blocks and watch streaming content when I'm overseas and I want to get American programming. It's been pretty good on that front. But the question then becomes, with EU's chat control, how is that all going to fare? Are you still on Pop OS? Yes, I still am. Of course, you can always roll your own VPN, but then the question becomes, where do you want to physically host the VPN? Because if you're hosting it out of your house, that's only going to be good for, you know, certain things. Like if you're outside your house. And then if you're traveling overseas, there's latency when... There's just a lot of considerations that go into it. Well, not really the latency, because if you're overseas, you're still using a US-based service, but more so, not everyone has the bandwidth, especially not symmetrical, to be able to do that in a way that we would actually have make sense. Pop OS won't let me play old games. Proton broken. That sounds like you're doing something wrong there, because I've been playing games just fine. Proton's not broken on Pop OS. I've been using it for 5 years. You probably messed up something with your configuration. That's just... I hate sounding like a dick like that, but that's the honest truth. I've not had an issue outside of kernel-level anti-cheat when it comes to gaming on Pop OS specifically. And that's... Kernel-level anti-cheat is a whole other kit and caboodle. I configured Windows 11 after trying Ubuntu. I mean, sure, if you want to, go back, slide into a operating system that will slow down over time, that's your prerogative. Use BSD for anything? Yeah, my firewall is BSD. How do I install a VPN on a Unix cube? What free one would you recommend? Well, if you're talking about Unix on Cubes OS, so what you would actually be doing, and you can use these instructions for any VPN provider. So Molvad actually has Cubes instructions if you're talking about Cubes specifically. Run for president. I need a lot of money for that to happen. So you can actually follow these instructions here. They've got one for WireGuard as well over here. Now, of course, these instructions are specific to Molvad, but you can adapt these instructions to any VPN provider. You'll just have to vary how you actually grab the VPN files, whether it's WireGuard or OpenVPN, and things like that. This is what I've been doing. So what you actually do, what does Molvad mean? Molvad is a VPN provider. They're another one. They just happen to have instructions that I've actually followed a lot of times for making your own proxy VM inside of Cubes. That's all it is. So that's also why I'm a customer of theirs. I like supporting their stuff on top of Proton VPN. I flip-flop between the two for different reasons. It's my poor man's zero trust solution. But yeah, so this will help you with setting up Cubes OS, walk you through the steps to do that, and you can adapt pretty much any of these settings to any VPN provider if you just look up the things. Molvad is free? No. Molvad is not free. But the instructions are free. And here's the reality. If you're wanting to use a VPN that's free, even in the best case where you have something like Proton VPN, it's going to be slow and throttled and there's going to be limits on it. A VPN, if you're going to be using one while you travel. Now, again, I still hold the opinion that unless you're using a VPN to get around geo-blocks, a VPN in your own home network is kind of useless. I really only use mine when I travel or when I need to do diagnostic testing to look like I'm from another location to see how different things will respond. But it's not really one of those things that I would say is a necessity in a home network. Traveling on a public network, totally different thing. But Molvad and Proton VPN are the two VPNs I will consistently recommend. And if you want to, support the channel and everything, I am affiliated with Proton. I only recommend stuff that I personally use. So always check the links in my bio, the product recommendations, all of that. Throws a couple bucks my way, helps me make the content and everything. How much is this going to cost? Do they take Monero? Molvad does take Monero. They actually give a 10% discount if you pay in Monero or Bitcoin. Proton does not accept Monero, but they do accept Bitcoin, if anyone's curious about that front. Why Windows 11 slows down. Windows has always slowed down over time. Like, as long as I've been using Windows, it's just slowed down over time. And many people will note this. There's this running, joke, I guess you could say, about, I need to reinstall Windows about once a year. Because it just gets bloated over time, and then they patch updates over time. Admittedly, a lot of it's for security, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that Windows doesn't really have a large amount of quality control and eyes peering on different patches. So the interesting thing you'll actually notice, and this isn't anecdotal, you can go talk to actual people that are using Windows and Linux, and they will tell you Linux actually gets faster over time because people are continually patching and improving the operating system. That what ends up happening is there's often updates that are focused on improving speed. Maybe some of them are like, it'll make it like microseconds faster in this response. Sometimes radical speed improvements. And there's ways you can tweak the operating system to be even faster that you can't do with Windows by default. And I know some people are going to say, well, you can do registry hacks and all that. Not really, to the point that Linux is. Windows is still using kernel items from the 90s that they never cleaned up. Exactly. Because the reality is, and Microsoft, you know, one of the reasons why businesses like Windows is you can still run Windows 98 XP applications in many cases on modern Windows operating systems. Now, Linux does admittedly break compatibility every few years or so, but that's because they understand at a certain point you have to move on. Apple is more aggressive in this, right? Let's catch up with the we are the money chief. Torrents. I mean, yes and no. You can. It depends on when you define torrenting, because if you're using torrenting to download legal, lawful content, which, yes, there are a lot of torrents out there that are legal and lawful. The Linux and open source community has been using BitTorrent for years. You don't need to hide your butt with that. Now, if you're doing things that might be playing hopscotch with the law, okay, I get the point there, but I digress. What about when sailing the seas? Well, I think you're missing an A there, and I think I just touched on that. Do you know why Pop! OS always seems to break for me compared to other Linux OS? I updated my NVIDIA graphics driver the other week, and it broke my install. Meanwhile, I use Catchy OS, and it's never broken for me. Well, the only time I've had an NVIDIA driver break things is when my Linux kernel was not newer. So I was still holding on to an old Linux kernel. It was either the Linux kernel was too new for the NVIDIA driver, or the NVIDIA driver was too new for the Linux kernel. I can't remember what it was. And all I had to do was drop into the CLI, because it broke the GUI, and then install the updated version of, I think it was the NVIDIA driver or the Linux kernel, one of the two. And then reboot the computer and back to, everything. So I don't know why yours is breaking the install. I haven't had that happen in the many years that I've been using Linux. But it also, like I was mentioning where, the GUI would break. That's not really breaking the operating system. The computer in and of itself was still functioning. The GUI just didn't work. And it was simple as, doing a little diag work and realizing, I was holding on to some old versions of things, do an update on them, boom, back in the race. So you have to do a little bit of troubleshooting. And then this is the same thing I would say when it comes to Mac and Windows too. No operating system is immune from breaking. We've seen Windows and Mac updates break, Windows and Mac just as likely as Linux updates can break things. That's just par for the course. They're designed by humans. Humans are not infallible. Humans will make mistakes. And things happen. That's just the unfortunate reality of things. About the only time I use a VPN is when I'm traveling and I'm trying to mess around with stuff on my home network. Pretty much. That's kind of the same story for me. Thoughts on Linux Mint for a daily driver? I don't know why every stream everybody asks me specifically about Linux Mint, and I'll say what I've said before. My only issue with Linux Mint is that it brings people from the comfort of Windows and that bad user interface and user experience because they know the interface from a place of comfort. And when you are running a Linux operating system that literally gives you power over whatever experience you want to have, you don't realize how bad that experience is until you start exploring other desktop environments, other workflows, and stuff like that. So for people that are like, I'm going to dip my toe in the waters, that's fine, but I would urge you to look into other operating systems and desktop environments and explore what kind of experience you yourself want to have for your computer. That's all it comes down to. And as I've said before, there is no best Linux per se. It's more down to what Linux best fits your workflow and your preferences. For me, Pop! OS is a nice daily driver. I use Debian 13 on my mini laptop. I use Parrot OS for the ethical hacking. And I use Cubes OS for my reasonably secure laptop when I want a little bit more hardened experience to containerize everything. But that's my things. I, of course, know the Arch users are going to pop up here with the inability to go touch grass and tell me that they use Arch. It's just a thing that we know, okay? I know I tease you, Arch users, but you know, it's the running meme. From what I know they do, they all stick cash, yeah. I've had a regular policy of reinstall Windows 1 to 2 times a year. And you're not the only one. A lot of people reinstall Windows because they notice over time it gets bloated, it gets issues, and it slows down over time, that the best thing you can do is reinstall it. But even after a certain point, Windows on old hardware definitely feels sluggish, whereas I can use hardware. Let's put it this way. If I have a computer from 5 years ago, and I put Linux on it, I can extend the life out of it a little bit. If I put Windows on that same hardware, you're definitely going to notice it's a little bit sluggish. It's just something the way that Windows optimizes things. Do Proton keep logs? No, they don't. Windows is... Oh, yeah, we already talked about it. How does that work email? How does that work? Well, what? Oh. Exactly, that's what I got my first bad experience with Windows after I used McAfee. Look, even John McAfee, may he rest in peace, didn't like McAfee antivirus, and I would totally watch the McAfee uninstalling McAfee antivirus video again if it wasn't for the fact that every time I show that, I get banned on TikTok. Well, at least the live does for a couple of days. Which is why you should be seeing me on the other platforms. You should make a Signal group. I have too many Signal groups I'm already a part of. They get, you know, a bit noisy as it is. Yeah, I'm on a few Signal groups from DEF CON. So, I have enough there. I'll keep it to Discord and Matrix for those kind of things. Those are better designed for large discussions. And, you know, communities, rather than, like, Signal and, yeah, pretty much Signal. Although it was interesting when I was at DEF CON, how many people were relatively new and didn't have Signal. And then how many people didn't get the hint after you have 3 or 4 people start asking you, do you have a Signal, to go ahead and make a Signal. I don't know why that didn't click for a lot of people that were at DEF CON, because in the cybersecurity world, Signal is the direct message app of choice. You can go around and say, well, what about Session? What about Threema? Nobody really uses those apps is the problem. Signal is the most widely used direct messaging app in the InfoSec world, where almost everyone I run into has that app installed. Just gotta ask, any interesting distros worth checking out? Yeah, as I've talked about a little, many times, there's, I'm of course a big fan of Debian's. I've been using Debian's for most of my, Linux using life. You have, of course, if you're going to be in the business side of things, you should familiarize yourself with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or at least the RHEL types like Fedora and stuff. Cubes OS is a really interesting Linux, but I do not recommend anyone start tinkering with that until you have familiarity and comfort with Linux. Like, you can't run Cubes OS inside a virtual machine because it is the hypervisor. Everything is a virtual machine. Let me show you what I mean by that. So we'll go to cubes-os.org, I think it is. And they call it the reasonably secure operating system. So this is a simplified chart of basically how the operating system is laid out. You have everything built on the Xen hypervisor. There's a system management virtual machine, a GUI virtual machine that actually renders everything. Everything runs off a template VM that trickles down all the settings, so you can potentially have all these different VMs, or however you configure it, be amnesiac in different ways. Either the system side of it is amnesiac and is a clean slate every time it starts up, or the or the user profile is, or both. You can have a totally disposable VM with this. You can have VMs that are actually not even connected to the internet, like KeyPass XE or what I use with my YubiKeys and stuff like that. Then you have a system USB virtual machine that all your USB devices go through. Your networking hardware all goes through a VM, which then goes through a firewall virtual machine, which then gives the networking to everything else. Like, you also have Unix as a Tor gateway that you then can have everything connect into here and enforce everything must go over Tor. If you wanted to, you could even configure sysunix as your main network VM, so the entire operating system only operates over Tor and gets its updates that way. You can make another VM inside of here if you want for a VPN, like we discussed. So what you can do is hook that in, and then that VPN VM can hook into anything here on your application VMs and then run over that VPN, and you can have multiple VPNs inside of there, so you can have things go out over different routes and then even drop certain things to the wire. So it's really a great operating system to tinker and play with. I think it's actually even pretty nice to dev with, because you can have different environments set up in one laptop very easily. Yeah, so there's that. There is, of course, Pop! OS, which I'm operating on. There is Nix OS, which is an interesting concept. And if you're going to spam chat, by the way, I'm probably not going to respond to your question. Everyone gets a turn. But yeah, there's different ones out there. The thing I would actually recommend people do is more so look at different desktop environments, because the reality is most Linux operating systems are more or less the same thing under the hood. Maybe a little bit of difference and nuance in how they architect. Like Cubes OS is definitely an interesting one. Parrot OS is what I like for ethical hacking. A lot of people lean towards Kali, but Parrot OS I think is a better daily driver for ethical hacking, and it has pretty much all the same tools. I haven't run into a limitation with it, and from what I've seen, it actually has better optimizations and configurations for most hardware when running it bare metal. Kali is okay to run as a virtual machine. Kali was never really designed to be a daily operating system, but you have that. Of course, you've got good old-fashioned Debian. You've got one of the granddaddy Linuxes, Slackware, which is really good at looking towards. Some people like Fedora. And then, yeah, there's a lot of different ones out there. You can go to a site called DistroWatch, actually. Let me pull it up. I think it's DistroWatch. Yeah, DistroWatch. So DistroWatch over here is basically an aggregate of all the different operating systems that are going on and categorizes their popularity. So you can actually see, like, in the past 6 months, what the popularity is for different ones. So, like, Pop! OS is number 6. You've got Endeavor, Debian, MX, Mint, Catchy is over there. You can adjust it by year. So, like, we can say what was the most trending within the past 7 days. And you can see, yeah, these were some ones that were trending. But then you can also see the news for all the different ones out there. You can get a good idea of different things going on. So DistroWatch is definitely a great place to look at. And if I remember, they had a graph or something at some point. I got to remember where it's put to actually show you the popularity over time. You can even hit like random distribution button and just pull up a random distribution. So Lubuntu, use that. That's just Ubuntu with LXDE. You know, so you can find some interesting ones that way. Dragon OS is really interesting for software-defined radios and stuff. That's on my list to play with. But yeah, you can find some interesting ones out there. And you can, of course, hit the major distribution buttons to find which ones are the largest ones with the most amount of support and get a feel for different things. All torrents are in the native form as P2P file transferring, just like anything else in the world. You can use it for good or bad. Yeah, true. How do you get out of a rage when you get locked out of something? I take a deep breath and I basically just accept that, oh God, here we go again. After it happens so many times, you know, you just learn to have good backups. And like, honestly, I forgot the password for my Graphene OS phone before I went to DEF CON. And the day before I went to DEF CON, I was in the middle of reinstalling Graphene OS on that phone and factory resetting it. I locked myself out of it. And it was just a point of, oh well, now I gotta reinstall all the apps and log back in. Woo. Happens. Let's see, you just gotta ask any... Oh yeah, we did that. Can Linux magically find the tinted moisturizer that I'm locked out of? It can do a lot of things, but unless you program it to do that and have sensors to hunt it down, I don't think we can help you with that. I use Arch with the KDE Plasma user. Of course you use Arch. Yes, it could be better, but I like it this way, and I'm used to it. Mint was my first Linux experience in 2015. No idea why I went with that one. I think a lot of people did. In the 2010s, you either really had Ubuntu, Fedora kind of, or Linux Mint. Those were like the big ones I remember, because Pop! OS wasn't even out then. Like, Linux didn't really hit mainstream critical mass, I'd say, until... When did Windows 8 come out? I gotta look this up. Yeah, Windows 8 was what started speeding it up in 2012. And then I would say Windows 10 kind of brought that back a little bit more, because there was... I know a lot of people are gonna say Windows 10 was not too bad, but there were enough people that were getting disgruntled with the way Windows was going. And then Windows 11 has really pushed a lot of that negative sentiment towards Microsoft. Let's see. One thing I haven't enjoyed is reinstalling Windows on my dad's laptop. His bitching about copying and pasting files like it has massively changed in Windows. Like he's the one who taught me how to build computers and somehow forgot how to copy and paste files. So this is something I actually noticed with my own father. As you know, I'm not on speaking terms with my father. There's been a lot of things, mental issues, decline there, you know, all that. He has gotten physical with me. Anyway, he was one of the people that got me into computers because I'm a second-generation geek thanks to him. You know, took me to Micro Center, got parts to build my computer, all these things. We had 10100 Ethernet running throughout the house before we had wireless internet, because wireless A was so-so back in the day. Then we got wireless B, then jumped to G, but then you still were better off with the 10100 connection. So we had Ethernet throughout the house that my dad and I would go with our IBM laptops. I had an X20 with an Ethernet card with a PCM-CIA adapter. People don't remember, laptops back in the day didn't have wireless built in by default, and they didn't have Ethernet either, so you had to add them through a PCM-CIA card. And we would go room to room with cords dangling. And my dad has fallen so far behind in a lot of the technology trends. He and I got into an argument over multi-factor authentication. So I was doing something for his business that he was running at the time. And of course, I, was pushing multi-factor authentication to be a standard. And this was also around the time when Google was mandating it. And he just could not wrap his head around the fact that you don't want to use SMS MFA and what an application multi-factor authentication app works like. And just, yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the lead that they're all absorbing in their body over the years from leaded gasoline and such. There's studies around that. That's not just me just making up crap. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that there is definitely issues with the older generation that once were using computers and should have been further along to just lose a lot of the skills and knowledge that they easily should have been able to retain, in my opinion. Your opinion on Zorin OS? It's okay. I've installed it for a few people as a way to get away from Windows, but it's alright. GUI slows you down anyway. Use command terminal. Yeah, it surprises me how many people are afraid of command line. And I mean that, specifically, I don't mean that specifically to Linux. I mean that in Mac, Windows, and Linux. There's a lot of things you can do behind a terminal that is a lot more powerful and quicker to do in command line, PowerShell, terminal, bash, whatever the hell you want to refer to it as, than you can do in GUI. Because GUI, you're only limited to what you encode. You code with. Fresh OS install is kind of satisfying until you have to reinstall everything. It's not as much of an issue when you're reinstalling an operating system like with Linux, because the honest truth is, when I'm reinstalling Windows, like I've done on the Streambox over here, it is definitely more of an endeavor to set up that computer with all the stuff. Because you got to think about it. With Windows, it's not just, oh, I'm going to install the operating system and then install a couple apps and then go. It is a situation of, I'm going to install the operating system, then I have to go grab the frickin' drivers for every piece of hardware connected in there, whereas Linux often comes with them packaged in, NVIDIA being the exception oftentimes, but that's not too hard. Many operating systems make it very easy to set that up. And then you then have to go around and be like, oh, I need to grab Steam. Well, let me go to Steam, download that. Oh, I need to grab, LibreOffice. Now let me go to LibreOffice, download that. I need the Yubico Authenticator. I need, all these different apps. And it takes you so long to download all those things manually because Windows does not, and they recently only started adding a package manager. And for those of you that don't understand what a package manager is, this is a concept that Linux has had since the 1990s, where we can easily just pull in all the softwares and manage all of our updates for the softwares and the operating system in one place. Windows, it's still a fragmented mess. Now, they do have WinGet now, but WinGet still has many years to catch up to where it should be. And I don't really think it will ever get to the point that it will ever be a true competitor to, say, Yum, DNF, apt, Pacman, Portage, and the other package managers out there like Zipper and stuff. Quick question, red or black? Don't mess that up. I'm good with either color. I don't know what you're getting at there. Let me see. Let's catch up with chat. Honestly, don't miss Windows at all. Bloat is a problem. Yeah, Windows is an extremely bloated operating system. People don't realize that. And it's kind of interesting where it's no longer, edgy to say, oh, I don't use Windows. Now it's kind of becoming normal to run into people that are actually using Linux, at least in my field. But now gamers are getting onto it too. I'm just saying, putting Lubuntu on a 2009 shitbox laptop makes it run insanely well. It's pretty impressive and fun. Yeah, I breathe life into old computers all the time with Linux. See, the problem is, and this is another reason why I don't care for Windows. Windows promotes e-waste. Think about this for a second. Windows 11 is requiring TPM features that many old computers may not have or don't support in the ways that they want. So what do you have to do? You have to get rid of your perfectly good computer to get a Windows 11 compatible computer. Not only that, the bloat on it slows the machines down over time, so you feel like you have to upgrade your system more often. And it's just clunky. Whereas I can take old boxes that people would have on Windows and say, oh, it's no longer good for me anymore. Maybe slap a new HDD or SSD in, and then turn that into a Linux box for hosting a server or whatever home lab needs I have. Most of my home lab projects were hosted at one point or another on secondhand PCs prior to Raspberry Pis and other single board computers being powerful enough and cost effective enough to be that replacement. And I mostly lean towards them for power consumption reasons. Mac's the worst for e-waste. Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Mac is definitely the worst when it comes to e-waste, and it cracks me up when people are, in the Apple camp and say, well, I use Apple because they're environmentally friendly. And I'm like, no, they're not. You have no right to repair basically on your device. Not only that, if you look at how an Apple computer is designed, they have to mill out that entire aluminum case with that unibody. I mean, it's technically not a true unibody. If you look at some of the older ones, they're just glued together. Funny story with that is there were quite a few Macs that actually became unglued because the heatsink was blowing directly onto the seam that they were basically glued together at. Have you ever seen Lori Wired? I have not. Is that why you like Kick? No, Kick is more of an experiment that I'm doing right now to see how that platform fares, at least for a few months. I wanted to dual boot Windows and Arch. I broke the Windows bootloader, and now I am a full-time Arch user, and I am scared of touching grass and sunlight. TikTok seems like it's dying, or maybe my algorithm is just cooked. Well, TikTok has been kind of weird for a while, I've noticed. I'll be honest with you, chat, if you haven't already heard me complain about this. I actually don't really use TikTok anymore. I post a TikTok, I have content on TikTok, but I personally do not use TikTok that much. I maybe limit myself to an hour at most a day on TikTok. At most. And many days, it's really just 15-20 minutes. You're on TikTok right now, but I'm not watching TikTok. I'm doing it because my audience happens to be there, as well as the other platforms. I'm streaming to 4 different platforms right now. What did they have? I'm directly messaging ATM knowing the 5Ds. Wait, what? Oh, at the moment. Well, a lot of people that, if we're talking about the point I had where I was kind of surprised about people going to DEF CON and not having signal and not getting the, the hint that when several people come up to you asking what's your signal, that you should probably get on signal. This is the one thing I will tell people. You should get in the habit of listening to what the trends are. I'm not saying you have to hop on every single damn app, but be aware of them. And if you're wanting to get in the field of cybersecurity, you should understand the communication apps that are very commonly used there. And Signal happens to be one of them. It's the same thing as, I tell people, like, in cybersecurity, LinkedIn doesn't matter as much. Maybe to the recruiters and HR people and maybe, the management people, but to the actual people in cybersecurity and IT that are on the ground, it doesn't matter that much. We're mostly on Reddit. We're mostly on, maybe looking up videos on YouTube. We're on Mastodon. We're on Blue Sky. Twitter, it's been kind of petering out for a while because, InfoSec Twitter's just kind of going. But Signal is overwhelmingly the biggest direct messaging app, chat app, that the cybersecurity world uses. Second to that, I've seen people using Matrix. Then I've seen a lesser extent using Threema and Session and all these other ones. You straight up roasted Pete Hegseth for using Signal and having an accidental oops. Well, let me be clear. Pete Hegseth, my issue with him using Signal was an identity and access management issue. I would never recommend using Signal in a corporate setting. I have been saying, thank you for the follow there, Balloon Magic. I have been saying when it came to that case, the issue with Pete Hegseth is he was doing it intentionally to avoid transparency and audits, archiving, everything like that. The government has secure comms. They have secure comms in several different ways. You have SCIFs. You have they have their own Gov Cloud when it comes to Microsoft Office 365. They've got apparently some of them even have Slack. When I was looking into it, many of them, many governments around the world are using Matrix, the protocol that I've talked about as well. The government could spin that up and then tie that into their identity provider. It was more an issue of Signal is not the proper tool when conducting official business, even in terms of regular business. Let me put it this way. At my workplace, Signal is an approved app in cybersecurity, but that is in the context of a couple of things. One, we are off-site and we are at some kind of convention like DEF CON or something like that. Two, Teams is down. If Teams is down, Signal is the fallback. But we still insist not to conduct official business over Signal. And that's the problem I had with Pete Hegseth. You and I, as everyday people using Signal, perfectly fine. I would still tell you, even if you're in cybersecurity, don't conduct your business in Signal. Use something that has proper identity and access management. That's the issue. Signal doesn't have IAM in terms of a corporate or government level that you're going to need. Let's catch up on chat here before it ages out. Burrell, my understanding is use Fedora if you want the newest of the new things. Alma if you want stability. Rocky if you want the security focus. Fedora is one at working to remove x86 and just be x64 if I remember right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, they were looking at removing 32-bit compatibility. And there's a lot of pushback on that, but this is not the first time I think they've tried doing that. It's not a bad assessment, which you said, but you can also run Fedora inside of Cubes OS. So with Cubes, you can either use Fedora, Debian, or a mix of those two templates. I personally prefer Debian, because that's what I know. But I know people that use Cubes with Fedora templates. Perfectly fine. And there are some advantages to the way they put Fedora does, because it does extra, I think, like signatures checking and things like that. I'm using Pop myself, but I like Parrot, but I like Debian for servers. Fair enough. A Linux-based OS that has a pro version that's paid is never good in my opinion. Responding to the person's Zorin inquiry. Zoris? I think you mean Zorin. Yeah, did they go for a paid-for option? I can't remember. I haven't really used Zorin that much in years. Debian recently finally got an update to Debian 13. Yeah, I have Debian 13 on my little mini laptop that you guys have seen. Pop OS guy, like Rel. I use Endeavor OS. I haven't played with Endeavor, but I hear good things. pfSense or OpenSense? I'm stuck in the middle right now. I personally use pfSense because I've been using it for about a decade and a half. There's a little bit more bells and whistles and things you can configure in terms of pfSense, but OpenSense is probably easier out the box, but businesses are still leaning towards pfSense out of the two. Either one's fine in terms of your home labbing needs, but you may find that there's just a little bit more tinker capability in pfSense. Now, that might change over the years, but they're both pretty good. Do you know the distro chooser? I do not. What would you recommend for financial security, e.g. virtual cards? Well, financial security... Definitely not swipe your card. You're going to want chip and pin, or preferably tap to pay when doing it through your device, like Google Pay, Apple Pay. I know I'm a heathen saying those kind of things, but they do some additional security things by randomizing the information in there. The honest truth is, Europe, from what I hear, a lot of their banks actually have better approaches that you can create disposable virtual cards, which I think is an approach that a lot of US financial systems need to introduce, because I think it'd be great if I could just create a one-off credit card to do just this purchase for this thing, and then it never is able to be used again, because then that would reduce the capability or the vulnerability of my card going out there being used multiple times and then having to replace the card, because I would have virtual cards for a lot of my different purchases going back to the same card. That's my 2 cents on that subject. Hey Chief, long time no see, looking cute today. Thank you for the compliment. I'm running media firm, 30 laptops, use Adobe and Windows. I want Switch distro support when apps winds stuck. Okay, that was probably a language barrier there, but yeah, I mean, Adobe is definitely the devil, but the problem is that it is the devil that everyone is using, similar to Microsoft, so you may be kind of stuck there. Now, you can move away from some Adobe flows into, like, say, a DaVinci if you're doing video, some graphic stuff with GIMP, Inkscape, stuff like that, but I will be completely honest and say it may not completely adapt your entire workflow one-to-one. That's just the unfortunate reality. Now, that could change over time as the market share of Linux starts growing more and more. You may actually see more official support, but DaVinci does work on Linux. Now, the only caveat is DaVinci works on Mac and Windows, whether or not you have AMD or NVIDIA GPUs. On Linux, you specifically need, no ifs, ands, or buts, an NVIDIA GPU with DaVinci, last I checked. Which is why I put NVIDIA stuff in mine, because eventually I may want to switch to DaVinci from KDE and Live, but that's an issue for another day. Didn't even know of the random distro feature. Might try hopping a bunch of distros on my spare PC. Yeah, if that interests you, go ahead. I used to distro hop years ago, but nowadays, I just stick with an axe head. I pick an axe head and stick with it. They banned VPNs. They will ban Linux Home. Where did they ban VPNs? I know they were talking about it in the UK and stuff. How can I make sure my VPN is working like intended? Well, there's ways to check for DNS leaks and stuff like that. A lot of VPN providers will have tools. There's, crap, I can't remember what it is. There's a few tools out there that actually check to see if you have a leaky DNS with settings. But yeah. It's gonna kill me because I know what the tools are. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Are we Windows users moving to Linux with October end date? I hear a lot of people are moving to Linux because of the Windows 11 forced push. And a lot of people not having computers that are, totally supported. So, is that everyone? Not really. Is that a good chunk of people? From what I see, yes. I use ArchBTW. Isn't it? Bayer Dynamic 1990s. These are the 990s, not 1990s. I started in 2005. I can't remember the distro. I started around there as my daily driving as well. I think I started with, I played a little with Slackware. I think I was playing with that even before. I was playing with Canopix, I think, even before then. My childhood is a blur. So, I remember the Ubuntu version I installed on my brother's PC was super basic. Yep. Agreed. 8 and 11 have been great for moving people over to Linux. Well, yeah, 8 was a horrible disaster of a user interface and user experience. The problem is Microsoft was banking too much on touchscreens taking over things. But the honest truth is, how many people ended up with a touchscreen computer? Not an iPad, not a tablet computer like that. I'm talking about a straight-up full-on computer, like a Surface. I know there's quite a few that use a Surface, but even with a Surface, when I was using it, I had a Surface Pro 3, Windows 8 just did not feel like a very comfortable, natural user experience. tend to use Debian now. Brainiacs, I need to figure out a formula for the tinted moisturizer that's unavailable. What's this tinted moisturizer? Not familiar with this. Wine didn't patch much support. Well, wine's just wine is just an emulation. Not emulation, sorry. Wine is a compatibility layer, not an emulator. Wine literally stands for wine is not an emulator. So the patches and all that, there's only so much you can do until support's built up for it. For gaming, it's great, though, especially now that Valve's behind it. One of my mentors wants me to use Debian. Come to the dark side. We have fresh-baked cookies, red lightsabers, and moonshine. I want run... Does wine has bugs? Well, like I've been saying, you know, it's going to take time until we get support, but eventually a lot of these apps are going to have native Linux support. There used to be a time when there was a lot of native Linux support for many different apps. I remember when boxed games, way before Valve's Steam was even a thing, you could actually get native Linux versions. I remember playing the Quake games, Tribes games, and a few others in native Linux form. The most I may have to do is grab the Windows install, go to the official website, grab the installer, and then it would pull the files off of the disk and then put the Linux-specific files on to make it run. I did that with Doom 3. Being the real Batman inside of us. What 2FA app do you use? Thoughts of NTAuth. My 2FA app, I use a Yubico YubiKey. So I use those for all of my multi-factor authentication needs. This is my little nano over here. This actually does my MFA, both in FIDO Web Authn, as well as the TOTP rolling codes. I should have some others around here. Yeah, I got a few others around here. I use YubiKeys for a lot of that stuff, my passkeys, things like that. I prefer having no actual application other than the Yubico Authenticator app that I then have to use my YubiKey to grab the rolling code, just because I like having it physically isolated. Because the issue that I have with timed one-time passcodes is that while they're more secure than SMS MFA, by far, I will still say that, the issue inherently with TOTP one-time rolling codes is they're generated off of one unique seed key. And that seed key can potentially be extracted from an authentication app, given the right malware or stuff like that, and then others can actually roll the key there. Whereas when you actually do like a FIDO Web Authn, it's uniquely tied to that key. Similar with passkeys, too. Windows, you mean spyware? Thor. What about Thor? Yeah, Winget has been a nice addition. Took them too long, though. Yeah, it's been way too long. They should have had Winget back in the Windows 7 days. But the problem is it's a little bit too little too late. Sometimes Windows drivers are just bad, too. Yeah. But, oh yeah, and the other part of that MFA, thoughts of NTAuth. There are so many different multi-factor authentication apps. They all basically do the same thing. You've had Authy, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, which I think is now going away. You have Proton having their own authenticator app. You had, NTAuth. They're all running off the same TOTP app rolling code standard. None of them are really that much different than the other. It's even built into Bitwarden and Dashlane and all these other password managers. So it's a pretty standard application that I kind of just tell people, pick an axe head, stick with it, make sure to back up your TOTP rolling codes, because if you lose access to those seeds, you are boned. That's the worst for e-waste. Yeah, I think we talked about that. Opinion on Libre Boot Core Boot. So I actually use a laptop that has Core Boot. It is my Purism Librem 14. They have it called Pure Boot. and I have basically core boot with heads. So I have a key that can actually authenticate, can verify if the device itself has been tampered with and the boot sector has been tampered with when I boot the laptop up. So when we think about authenticating into a computer, everyone is familiar with the concept of we authenticate to a computer to prove our identity to be able to use the computer. But rarely do people ever think about flipping that on its head when we need the computer to verify itself to the user. That's what Heads provides inside of Core Boot. Now, the one thing I will tell people when it comes to Libre Boot and Core Boot is that it unfortunately will only work on Linux. It doesn't work with Mac. It doesn't work with Windows because of the way it hooks into things, from my understanding. But, yeah. So I definitely like Libre Boot. I definitely like Heads on top of it. My next laptop is, one of my next laptops is definitely going to have Core Boot with Heads. I'm looking at Nova Custom for that one. I would prefer a computer that has a free and open source BIOS, especially in light of the whole Intel management engine issues and everything. And the one thing that really sucks about, winter, summer weather and everything is you still get flies no matter how much you try to get rid of them. They just get in your house. Should have brought my electrified racket. You're lucky right now, Fly, or you'd be getting the electric chair. To be clear, TikTok, that was directed towards a literal insect. Vampire, I'm sad my PS2 fried. Oh no, weren't you just working on that last night? How did your PlayStation 2 fry? Did you solder the wrong thing? Just installed Signal. Nice. You'd be surprised how many of your friends may actually be using it too. I use it as the de facto app with a lot of my friends to message. Manjaro to Endeavor OS. What about Matrix? Matrix is great. I've talked about Matrix as well. The issue when it comes to Matrix isn't an issue with the application in and of itself. It's not as well known as, say, Signal and Discord and a lot of these other platforms. There's more of an education uphill that I have to do. The battle uphill with education when it comes to Matrix and why Matrix and how it works, similar to when I was with Mastodon, than there is Signal. It's like, oh, it's this direct messaging app by a great nonprofit that actually stands for your rights and freedoms and all of this stuff. Okay, cool. Sign up. There you go. We can use it. Matrix is a little bit more involved because you can't just install the Matrix app. You got to figure out what front end you want to use. So there's Element and a few others. You got to figure out where you want to home your account. Like, you can use matrix.org, or you can build your own server, or there's a few other servers you can home on. So that's the one issue that I have with Matrix, is not an issue with Matrix in and of itself. It's that there's a little of a learning curve with them. Not so much in using the platform as to understand the platform, if that makes sense. What's your go-to cloud storage company? Just found out about a company called HiveNet, and it's pretty affordable, but I don't effing know. There's a few options out there. It depends on what you're looking for. For business needs, I still recommend people to Office 365. For personal needs, there's quite a few out there. You can spin your own with like Nextcloud if you want something like that and host it out of your home or wherever you want to have. There's many options out there. You can go to DigitalOcean, you can go to Linode. Well, Linode's not as great now that Akamai has bought them out, and you can set up an S3 bucket for things and have Nextcloud. There's a lot of ways to slice this cat, is what I'm saying. Or skin this cat. There's many different options. And there's another service, I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. I was looking at using them for if and when I move off of Apple iPhone and fully onto Graphene OS. I can't remember what they are called. It's in my notes somewhere. I'll have to look it up. Manjaro's still good, though. Less update notifications. I haven't used Manjaro in a few years since I set it up on a Pinebook Pro. Well, I am being called out over Signal. Well, it wasn't just you, Abby. There was a lot of people. Even they were using Starlink. What, the Pete Hegseth, all that? Yeah. Matrix is old. Matrix isn't that old. I mean, it's been around for a few years, but it's still relatively new, if I recall. Matrix Protocol. Okay, let's see. Matrix Protocol. Pull up the Wikipedia. 10 years. So it's still relatively new. I didn't know what is with my signal. And I don't mean the app. I don't know, I was like dropping packets a little bit. I'm still not dropping nearly as bad as when I was on the last ISP. So chat, let me know if the stream is messing up. I have heard that some recruiters started to look at your GitHub repos and open source contributions. Yep, this is true. My employer did that before they hired me as well. That is why I tell all of you to look, keep an active GitHub and do at least some tinkering. I worked for a gov in Canada. We are told to only use Teams. Yep, that's pretty usual from what I hear. Chief, did you hear about the new Flat Hub? There's a new Flat Hub? You'll have to tell me which one it is. Like a new flat pack repo? That's cool. It was always designed to have more repos. Flat Hub was just the one everyone gravitated to. Cubes is heavy. Well, yeah, everything's a virtual machine in it. It's not really a lightweight system. Like, thanks for the follow, Rain Tanya. Hope I said that right. Cubes OS was, everything's containerized. Like, I think the minimum requirements are 16 gigabytes of RAM and like a Core i5 or Ryzen 5. It's not a lightweight system. It's not meant to be a lightweight system because of how everything's containerized. I have 64 gigs of RAM in my Cubes OS laptop, and about 3/4 of it is used when I'm using my laptop. So the flight attendants are on strike. Are they on strike? What can you advise us about OSINT roadmap, please? Well, what about it? It's kind of a broad question. I'm just being honest there. Opinions on Pop OS. I think it's absolutely amazing if you want a polished and secure OS. It's pretty polished. It's decently secure like most Linux operating systems. It's not the most secure distribution. That would probably go to Cubes OS. But it's, I think, a good balance of convenience, performance, out-of-the-box capability for gaming, tinkering, content creation, and just using your computer as a computer. The iOS keyboard is so inefficient. All keyboards suck on a phone. Proton really the best choice? I think it's one of the best choices if you're going to be, using a VPN and stuff. Well, let me make this clear. Proton is the best in terms of the entire suite that they offer you for the price. Because for the price, you get encrypted at rest email. Now remember, email is not a secure medium and protocol as a whole, so don't get your hopes up on, oh yeah, I have a Proton mail, I'm private. No, email as a whole is insecure. Like, this is the thing a lot of people don't seem to understand. No matter what provider you have, they can see your emails in the email gateway, whether you like it or not. It's an old, archaic system of delivering electronic mail. the best they can do is the second it gets past the gateway, encrypt it immediately. But all email providers do have access to the ingress and egress of all the mail coming in. If you want to get around that, your only option really is to use PGP encryption, pretty good privacy. And that is a whole other complication because you would need to know the person's PGP key before you send that email. So there's a little bit of pre-work that needs to be done in order for PGP to work. But with that being said, Proton has one of the better, privacy suites because you get the password manager. You get the simple login for email aliasing, so you can have a different email for every account, or marketing emails so that if they get spammy, you can cut it off. You've got the VPN capabilities, the cloud storage in there to store your documents relatively secure, and like so many other things inside of there. For the price, it's still one of the better options. And then I also like Molvad. Molvad's great from a purely privacy perspective because you don't have any PII except your payment info. And even then, you can pay in straight Monero and get a discount while you're at it too. So those are your options. That's why I like both of them. I'm not saying one is better than the other overall. There's pros and cons to each platform. Like Molvad, for example, if I'm traveling and I go to use Netflix, it won't work. If I use Molvad with a lot of streaming services, it won't work. But it is definitely one of the more private ones. But Proton does invest to make sure when I was like in Portugal, my Hulu worked, my Crunchyroll worked, and all these other things that I was using. Why you need an NVIDIA GPU for DaVinci? So, like it or not, NVIDIA is still the better GPU for a lot of computational needs. Whether we're talking about GPU in cases of, what is it called? Transcoding, I think it is. To encode, decode videos. Like when I'm doing my streaming here, I'm on an NVIDIA 3050. Then you also have CUDA built into it that can accelerate quite a bit of different processing. AMD can do OpenCL, but not as many things are on it. They want to lean more towards CUDA. And a lot of applications are built specifically for CUDA processing. So NVIDIA is a little bit better. Its video encoder is goated. I definitely agree with that. I probably will be moving from a 3050 on the stream box over here to a 5050, even though a lot of people say, it's overrated. Or maybe at least a 5070 or 5080 or something like that. Because the 5070 or 5080, if I recall, has two NVENC encoders. So I can do double the streams on it. And the reason why I want to go a 5050 is I can do AV1 encoding, which would then increase the quality of my streams tremendously for Twitch and I think YouTube. Not so much TikTok. I don't think TikTok supports AV1 encoding. I don't think Kick does either. But yeah, basically, NVIDIA is still the better GPU, like it or not, for overall content creation. Also, recall coming to Windows is pushing a ton of people. Even if a device isn't supporting recall, any idea of recall isn't a good idea, in my honest opinion, well, on a closed source OS. Yes, I totally agree. Recall was a horrible idea. I want to be a fly on the wall that made that decision and thought it was a good idea, because I highly doubt that idea came from the engineers in the trenches. That idea must have come from leadership. That does not seem like an idea engineers would be like, this would be great. Because it feels like engineers had to rush to put together a solution that leadership wanted, because if this was an engineer-first solution, it would have not had half the problems with securely storing the files and everything around there. Because most of those people would have considered, somebody's going to have access to the computer, they're going to probably need to, secure that up and everything, whereas they were just trying to meet a quota. leadership is an idiot. That is absolutely true of most companies. Because they're in their ivory tower looking down upon, us, peasant engineers, and then saying, make me this feature! Whoosh. Did I get the game from yesterday? Yes, I did. I did. We may play it in a little bit. Germany is really hard against pirates because politicians here are old and don't know crap about tech and just listen to lobbies because they give a lot of money. That's the problem world over. Politicians are old and they don't understand things. Look at the UK Online Safety Act. Look at the Kids Online Safety Act in the USA. Or how many politicians are trying to enact requirements of ID verification for adult content on the internet. Like I was talking about earlier, Ohio is now going to be another one of those states, as it was revealed that they slipped that into a budget bill. And they even had provisions saying that it's going to have to require geolocation and geofences and all that. And these boomers and septuagenarians were actually saying this will defeat VPNs. And I was laughing hysterically because they obviously don't know the first thing about this technology. Debian is the stable version. Yep. You use P2P authentication, you dye your authentication blue. Wait, what? Storing passkeys in a password manager instead of a phone a bad idea? Seems like it, but the convenience. So the reason why passkeys, you hit the head on the nail, by the way, with why most phones are doing it, is it's the convenience factor. I personally put my passkeys on a YubiKey. Now, since Yubico has released the 5.7 firmware, I want to say back in May, you can have up to 100 passkeys on each YubiKey. 100 is a lot of accounts. Just make that very clear. So, as long as your password manager is reasonably secured and all of that, it should be fine. But my password manager requires a YubiKey to access it. So, yeah, I don't put a passkey in my password manager. I don't put my multi-factor authentication rolling codes in my password manager. My password manager is for my passwords and the user ID. I have a separate way that I store the keys for the TOTP, and then I use YubiKeys for a lot of the MFA that I need to use with rolling codes or passkeys or FIDO WebAuthn security keys. So, yeah. What happened to the good old notebook for passwords? Well, the problem is the humans suck at entropy. A lot of the people out there have these convoluted, weird ideas for oh, make a password this way. No. Just create a random string. Let me show you. So Proton Pass actually has a free password generator. There's other ones out there we'll talk about. So I'll show you a couple. This is one I actually give to kids. And it's actually really great. I use it when I'm making passwords for end users. It's called DinoPass. Dinopass.com. Simple, relatively secure passwords. You can add some entropy to this, but this is great for, kids. Now, Proton Pass has a password generator. Let me make sure I pull this up right. There we go. So Proton Pass has a decent generator over here, and this is built into Proton Pass Password Manager as well. So you can easily, generate long strings like this, as long or short as you need. Right now, I think, what is the recommendation? 16 characters, if I recall. You can also do a more memorable password. These are not too bad. Drapery 0, celibate 8, likeness 1, and then you have the dashes in between. So it's a reasonably secure password, but still a little bit more memorable. I'm a sucker for Bitwarden at the moment. I like Bitwarden too, don't get me wrong. You see, I have it too. I have no complaints with Bitwarden. I just have to say that Proton Pass, for the average everyday user, I like it because you can create different email aliases for every account. But I also will still say Bitwarden is great too. I have my password split between Bitwarden, Proton Pass, KeyPass XC in different ways, in different levels for different use cases. So I keep personal, work, side projects, all that separate from each other. Windows drivers are so bad, I once had to install touchpad drivers. Yeah, that is not uncommon, that Windows drivers just get really janky. And then you run into the issues where sometimes you have older hardware that isn't supported on the newer operating system. And I don't have that issue with older hardware on Linux very often, unless it's like weird, obscure pieces of hardware. Now, I mean, there are cases, of course, with Linux that, you know, it just doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, that's unfortunately the case. I remember when Windows Vista didn't have support for a lot of Windows XP things. Driver hell is always going to be hell, whether on Mac, Windows, or Linux, or FreeBSD, or whatnot. Saw a comment from you on an Intel ME video that you have it disabled. Can you talk about it? So I generally go to Linux first vendors, which generally disable Intel Management Engine. So from my recollection, System 76, Purism, Nova Custom, Tuxedo Computers, these are 4 vendors that I've dealt with. MNT as well, but MNT doesn't deal with Intel. But we'll just throw them in as an honorable mention as well. All of these companies disable Intel Management Engine by default, whenever possible. So when you get a Purism laptop, which is my Cubes OS laptop that I brought to DEF CON 3 times, I don't have Management Engine out of the box. So the way it works is you do need Intel Management Engine to boot the laptop for certain parts of it. But what it does is it turns on just enough, then it disables Intel ME. There was this NSA bit that you flipped or something that somebody figured out that disabled it. Because the NSA doesn't like Intel ME as well, just so you know. This is not tinfoil hat conspiracy. This is proven, documented stuff. Let me see. NSA, Intel ME disable. Purism has a blog there. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. The HECI bit. So it's Hackaday. So they talk about this where there's a bit that you can flip. That's Purism's thing. But there's many things here talking about Intel ME, disabling Intel ME on Dell laptop, how to disable Intel ME on Intel NUX. So, yeah. Libre Boot helps disable a lot of this stuff. Libre Boot, Core Boot, stuff like that. But they are required for system initialization, so you can never completely neuter them. And the reason why Intel ME is such an issue is it allows for out-of-band management, which is a really great thing, do not get me wrong, on an enterprise-level laptop, because that way I can turn a laptop on, make sure it gets its updates, do BIOS patching, all of that, and I can control all that stuff out of band. Great concept for enterprise. But for the average everyday person, bad. It is basically, how it works is, I'm going to give an oversimplification of this. There is essentially a web server running on a Minix operating system inside your CPU. So inside your CPU, I kid you not, is essentially a whole other computer and operating system. And its sole purpose is to allow for out-of-band management, which is great on an enterprise thing. But the average everyday user, it's a privacy and a security violation. And there's been so many issues relating to Intel ME that we've seen. And Minix, for those of you that are not aware, it has an interesting history because that was the operating system Linus Torvalds, I think, tinkered with a little bit. And I want to say his name was Tenenbaum. Who made Minix? Minix. This is an old thing, and it's still actually, used more or less. Released originally 38 years ago. Yeah. Andrew S. Tannenbaum. I think he and Linus Torvalds actually got into arguments many years ago. So Minix is basically a microkernel architecture CPU rather than a monolithic type architecture. So what does that mean? Essentially, a microkernel is keeping the kernel to its smallest components. GNU Hurd was another kernel that was a microkernel type architecture. Linux is what we call monolithic, though. So as a kernel, it has a lot of the messengers and things like that built into what you need in an operating system as part of the kernel. Whereas a microkernel, it's split up into a lot of different things, which means the overall kernel of the operating system is a lot smaller and miniaturized comparatively. There's been a lot of, research around microkernels and stuff like that. I'm oversimplifying it a little bit. But yeah. So that's basically what's running inside your computer with Intel ME. Bizarre. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. Okay, so Gardner made a video. So I used to watch him quite a bit. I'm not going to speak negatively about him. But I'll just say, I feel like the dude's, in a way, gone off the rails based on some of the social media posts I saw a few years ago from him. I remember one time he got upset at me because I just merely made mention of RTFM. And he went on a rant about how, if you've been part of my community, you know how that's, I don't believe in that, and it's toxic, and I'm like, he went on this huge diatribe of a rant, and I'm like, okay. But we all inherently have to study the things, how they operate, rather than just get spoon-fed information, so we learn properly. But I digress. Overall, I think he's a decent dude, but I haven't seen his content much over the years. But yeah. I definitely still have a much higher regard of Gardner Bryant than I do of Thor, Pirate Software. And then on that note, have y'all heard about the drama around Mutahar, aka Some Ordinary Gamers? That was some interesting stuff that happened. Man, you're on my TikTok and YouTube. You're on my TikTok, YouTube, and now Twitch. You're everywhere. Jeez, Rain Tanya, I appreciate it. Now I told you the capacitors I looked at, and it destroyed the board after I tested it. Oof. Yeah, I had a feeling you're gonna have to replace some caps on that. Explain it. What were you asking me to explain, live and learn? There was quite a few things I've been going through. Pop! OS is definitely not up there. You're talking about in terms of, security? I mean, it's more secure than Windows, but in the grand scheme of, secure operating systems, yeah, it's not up there. Cubes is probably, S tier in terms of security, but yeah. So you're telling me using Yahoo as a storage server by emailing myself files isn't a good idea? No joke, I actually do know people that do that. And AOL. Did you get the... Oh yeah, I got the game from yesterday. Turn the elderly into food. It is like a new UI for Flat Hub. Oh, it's just a new UI? I don't know if having a new UI is really what's needed. I mean, I'm not gonna say no to a new UI, but yeah. Opinions on kernel level anti-cheat being used more in gaming. Well, I've already, like, beat this horse into the ground here. I actually have an entire YouTube video where the title actually should tell you everything you need to know. So, let me pull this up. I think I made it, like, several months ago, though, so we'll have to, like, scroll for a sec. Here we go. 9 months ago. Wow! 9 months ago. I've only been doing YouTube videos for like a little over a year. Can't believe that. Kernel level anti-cheat is dumb and a disaster waiting to happen. In this video, it's about 22 minutes long. I go into it. I talk about how they're wanting to go deeper into anti-cheat and everything like that at the kernel level, how it is a potential security risk because you've already had games like Genshin Impact have their kernel level anti-cheat be co-opted as part of an attack chain to disable antivirus. That's right. They used the kernel level anti-cheat from Genshin Impact. And let me clarify this. You didn't have to have Genshin Impact installed. They extracted the anti-cheat from Genshin Impact and used it as part of the attack chain. It was part of the payload. And it disabled antivirus. And you can do that because they had kernel level access. And there is no way anyone is going to sit there and tell and convince me that kernel level anti-cheat is a good idea when it's a damn video game. As much as you may complain about kernel level access for CrowdStrike and the incidents that happened there, I trust CrowdStrike a crap ton more with having kernel level access because they're a security software than I do of a random game studio. And now we're seeing issues where kernel level anti-cheat can't be installed alongside another kernel level anti-cheat. So Battlefield 6 was incapable of being installed alongside Valorant and their Vanguard anti-cheat. So now you're getting to the point where the average gamer is going to have a conundrum of, I'm going to have to uninstall this game to play this other game, which takes hours upon hours to download if I want to go back to the other game. Or I have to have multiple gaming setups, which most people are not going to want to do. Those are your two options. And it's effed. And I hold the standpoint of, this is why I don't understand when people are like, well, I only, play this game. I only keep Windows because I play this video game and it only runs on Windows. Well, why does it only run on Windows? Because of kernel level anti-cheat. If I were still using Windows today, I would still not be putting money into games that have kernel level anti-cheat. It's too much of a risk, too much of an issue. Kids do love dinosaurs. Yep. Dino Pass is great for that. It's crazy my phone's hotspot is better than my Wi-Fi RN. Wow, internet is so bad. LOL. Wow, internet used to be really, really great. I don't know what happened. The enshittification of so many ISPs. I'm late to moving away from LastPass. Should I worry about migrating to another password manager? Well, if you're on LastPass, definitely migrate away. I normally tell people, look, if you're already on Dashlane, Bitwarden, Proton Pass, any of those, you're fine. You don't need to switch. If you want to switch because the other has features you like, then it's cool. But LastPass is the exception to the rule where I will tell you, if you are using LastPass, Excel, physically writing down your passwords, get over to a better password manager. And the two that I recommend the most, Proton Pass by far because of the feature set they have and the entire, Proton suite, which, full transparency, I am affiliated with them. So if you do want to, get your Proton subscription, check the links in bio and such. But the other one that I will recommend, and I'm not affiliated with them, is Bitwarden. I like Bitwarden. You can also self-host your own Bitwarden if you want. That is a total possibility. Those are the two that I like. But yeah, LastPass, they've had too many breaches that I am not comfortable with really anyone using it, even if they do happen to change their tune. The reality is, what is it? Like they had 2 or 3 breaches in a single year or two. And one of them, if I recall, was the result of a developer not patching their Plex box. I kid you not. I will bring this up for you. LastPass Plex. I can't make this up. LastPass hack, engineers' failure to update Plex software led to massive data breach. And to make this clear, it wasn't Plex on the company's servers. It was apparently Plex in their home setup. Because apparently they weren't zero trusted. So let's reveal this. The Embattled Password Management Service last week revealed how unidentified actors this is like 2022, leveraged information stolen from an earlier incident that took place prior to August 12, 2022, along with details available from a third-party data breach and a vulnerability in a third-party media software package to launch a coordinated second attack between August and October 2022. The intrusion ultimately enabled the adversary to steal partially encrypted password vault data and customer information. The second attack specifically singled out one of the 4 DevOps engineers, targeting their home computer with a keylogger malware to obtain the credentials and breach the cloud storage environment. So, for a company that is focused on securing your credentials, what the hell are they able to do with a home computer? What the hell are they doing being able to access systems on a home computer? That should be isolated to a whole other computer that is corporate only, zero trusted, with conditional access, and, it should be properly managed. Yep. This, in turn, is said to have made possible by exploiting a nearly 3-year-old patch flaw in Plex to achieve code execution on the engineer's computer, the streaming media service told the Hacker News in a statement. So this developer didn't update their home box for streaming for at least 3 years, from my understanding. That's a problem. That's a problem. But yeah. So, to give you an idea, Plex, discovered and reported by Tenable in March 2020, was addressed by Plex in version 1.1932764, released on May 7th, 2020. So at this point, it was almost 3 years. No, 2 years, I think. And they were that far behind. Oh, Plex said in a statement for reference, the version that addressed this exploit was roughly 75 versions ago. So that is the ultimate issue with LastPass, is they don't have good security practices internally. Maybe they've improved a little bit since then, but it's only been 3 years since that compromise. You can only improve your posture so much in 3 years when you're a large entity. That's the problem I have with LastPass. Because in this day and age, not being zero trusted, still allowing employees to access on their own personal devices, corporate assets, is a no-no. And there is just so many different things that just went wrong with it. Anyway, moving on. Have you seen the ARM Master Hacker subreddit? I have not. Is it bad? What handheld should I purchase? Well, I mean, have you tried the SIG P365? I'm kidding. Sort of. Anyway, I don't do too much in terms of handheld gaming and all that, but I hear good things about the Lenovo handheld. The Steam Deck is, of course, a great one. Quite a few people like the Switch, but the issue is, you don't really own your stuff with the Switch, and that's the issue. But yeah. Where is... I forgot to switch that over. Oh no. I have to update that thing. But anyway. ETA Prime runs a good YouTube channel for SFF and portable builds. I agree with kernel level anti-cheat because my PC is already compromised. I honestly thought anti-cheats would get less aggressive, but no, devs won't listen. I never thought they could get more aggressive, and here we are. Oh, it's getting even worse because developers like Riot have openly discussed how they want to move towards IOMMU requirements. IOMMU is a framework that's used inside of like your hypervisors and virtual machines so that you can have direct access to hardware when virtualizing things to be more expeditious. That's kind of worrisome that they're getting this low in hardware. As it is, they're requiring TPM and other things, and it's just janky. I was going to ask if you heard about something, but I don't want to bring you into game drama, RN. What game drama? There's so much game drama. We talking about the Karens at Collective Shout? We talking about the, I mean, Pirate Software's drama is kind of, you know, played out or that. But my God, people were milking it forever. There was this one guy, Quinthio, that I swear to God had like a whole month of videos on Pirate Software. And even I was like, after my second video on YouTube, which ended up being like 4 or 5 TikTok clips each one, I was like, two's enough. We're moving on. I got better things to do. I have no interest in, you know, kicking a dead horse just because it's the popular thing right now. I give it my, you know, few minutes. If I have an additional thought on the thing, I come out with another video. You do agree that Pirate Software is a bad person, though, right? So let me put it this way. I don't personally know Pirate Software. Let's get that out of the way. With that being said, I don't like the things that have come out about him. Like his roommate was saying he was just not a, you know, clean guy and just nasty other things. He is a bit of a Nepo baby. There's no way to get around that. And I don't say that lightly. He definitely got his position because of, you know, nepotism. He doesn't understand how nepotism actually works. I definitely say that he has an issue with accepting when he's wrong. Because, look, I will tell you all, I don't know everything. I know what I know, and even what I know could be wrong. Because you're not dead until you stop learning. And I firmly believe that, you know, we should be able to learn and grow, and we mostly, no, I wouldn't say mostly, but a good part of our learning is from our mistakes. I've made a lot of boneheaded mistakes in my life. I've said things I regret. I've done things I regret. And I'm sure everyone in this audience can relate to me on that fact. But at least by the virtue of admitting that we made that mistake and know what we can do to not repeat it again, we can become better people from that. But there were a couple of incidents where Pirate Software, it was as simple as like he could have just gone, you know what? My bad. And we would have moved on. So, like, I'm not a big World of Warcraft guy. I remember when that whole thing happened with World of Warcraft, I was like, it's a video game, who cares? That was my personal opinion. But looking back at it and learning about the whole situation about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, you could have literally just been like, hey, I messed up. I made a bad call on a game. It didn't work out well. I'm sorry. and moved on. Nobody would have cared. Same thing with the stop killing games thing. He could have simply just, said, you know what? I was wrong about this thing. And and moved on. Like, I will admit, when I first looked at stop killing games, because I'm not exactly a proponent of government coming in and fixing everything, because government can sometimes come in and make things worse, misread things. And then eventually I had to chew on it and mull it over. Took me a few days of processing it. I'm like, okay, I see what they're getting at, and I agree with it. And then, unfortunately, it kind of died off with Pirate Software, and then it kind of got a resurgence with Ross Scott making that video, and here we are. What you're saying? From what I know, talking to Chet from the Left 4 Dead team, PS was correct about SKG. No, he was not. I've literally given examples of Tribes too, where that is a good model of basically what can happen. All SKG is asking for is not the idea of a perpetual state of support of games. He was wrong on that. All he's asking for is the ability to have a support model with or without the company once they have, had the game run its course. For example, Tribes 2. Still playable. That game is 24 years old, I think. We played it on stream several times. Sierra and Dynamics released the game for free. Eventually, they shut down the master servers. Tribes next came around, patched the servers, and their community run. It's all community run now. That is what we're looking at doing. And the fact that single-player games should not be tied to an online component to require you to move on from the game when said game is no longer supported by the company. Maybe they changed their terms. Last time I checked their official statements on software. If you're talking about SKG, no. SKG was straight up on how they wanted things to, work was they just want to see what's the word? I don't know if crux would be the right word. But the launching point of this entire movement happened after a video game called The Crew, which had a single-player mode, was shut down, and you couldn't even play the single-player mode to force you over to The Crew 2. Shutting down the online component of it, okay, that's cool. You can do that. Company has resources they put into it. That's fine. But there was no reason for the single-player component of the game to be killed. And there's many games out there that have single-player components of the games that still work, but the online component doesn't work anymore. Or it's been patched by the community. The Roblox CEO that was protecting PDF files. Oh, yeah. That. We'll talk about that in a sec. Let me finish these things. I don't want to support Pirate Software because I didn't like him already. Fair enough. What would you not recommend? In what? I wonder where Casey Tron has gone. Who's Casey Tron? Wait. Is that like one of the people that was like in Hassan's circle or something like that? I vaguely understand that name. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of somebody totally different. I've been keeping tabs a little bit on that whole drama of things. Hey, Jacob Ross, how's it going, bud? Shalom, me homie. Would you recommend SoCME for Mac OS virtualization? It was good at one time. I haven't used it in a while, but it worked pretty well for Mac virtualization when I was tinkering with it on Linux. Although virtualizing Mac has always been problematic, to say the least. Apple does not really support virtualizing their software as they should. Should I start going live again? Maybe. I go live on 4 different platforms at the same time, so I have community on different platforms. And then I use Social Stream Ninja to pull in the chats from all of them on a different monitor. I feel like accountability is a big pitfall with him, and he's a bit stuck up, but admittedly, he really isn't the worst person on the internet, I suppose. Oh yeah, there's far worse people on the internet. Let's not get that wrong. But, yeah. He definitely has an issue with accountability. Like, as I've said, I've made mistakes in my life. I will make mistakes in the future. All TOS approved? Yeah. I just don't put the chat on screen. But yeah, I as I was saying, I've made mistakes in my life. I've said things that I regret. And I probably will say or do stupid things moving on in my life, as everyone else probably will. But I will take those as learning moments, take my lickings, and apologize wherever possible so that I can learn to become a better person to not repeat the issue again. And I think that's the problem that Pirate Software has. But also, I think there's a lot of puritanical people out there that, will hold you by the neck whenever you do the slightest issue and forget people are fallible. Let me catch up with the chat. Just about that, but the way chat described modern dev, apparently a lot of these tools that the games use are hosted online and are referenced live, so they'd need to dev it new. Yeah, I mean, I understand that argument, but at the same time, they shouldn't have actively done that. They shouldn't have moved towards a consistently online model for everything. Because the problem is, and I've talked about this in my other YouTube video, I think it was the second one, where I harped on BCPDR, Business Continuity Procedure and Disaster Recovery. See, availability is a concept inside of cybersecurity that's part of what we call the CIA triad, not the actual Central Intelligence Agency. Take your tinfoil hat off. We're talking about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. A lack of availability is considered a cybersecurity issue in a company, just so you're aware. And we have to plan for not only if we lose availability to the service, but what happens if you have a client post-life of the company, post-life of the product? What do we do? How do we transition them? And that is ultimately the problem that a lot of developers haven't considered. They take for granted that a lot of these systems are online, but forget a lot of the games that we grew up with as a child, they're still playable today. Let's catch up. Warhammer Online was dope at one point. Yeah, Warhammer Online was dope. It definitely was. I played that for a little bit. The Crew 2 map was great. I hear Crew 2 was great. Casey Tron is older than Hassan. Really? Huh. Shadowrun on Xbox 360 was sweet. I never got to play Shadowrun. A pro LCS LOL player with amazing Syndra guide mechanics. What was that? I lost the chat there. Sorry. I'm losing context here. They got Chris Hansen out of retirement to go after Roblox. Yeah, I heard about that. So what was it? There was a YouTuber named Schlepp, I think was his name. I'm actually going to be talking about this a little bit in my upcoming video, talking about EU chat control. I'm packaging the video that's coming up about EU chat control for an overall discussion about UK Online Safety Act, about the US Kids Online Safety Act, about the Take It Down Act, and, you know, the Roblox situation, because as I touch on in the YouTube video, the problem is politicians, and especially parents, have this misguided perception that we need to protect our children from these dark places online. But here's the unfortunate reality, and if any parents are listening to this, you should really be listening to what I'm about to say right now. The reality is that predators don't hide in dark areas of the internet. In real life, where are they? They are approaching these children at malls, playgrounds. They go to where the children are that they can victimize. They're not hiding in dark corners. And it's the same thing with the internet. And that is the one thing they need to understand. They use the idea of protecting the children to go after encryption apps because the encryption apps are where the whistleblowers, the journalists, the political dissidents are, and you're having free speech discussions out there. But Roblox is a good example of how they are not hiding at all in a dark space. They are going right to where the kids are. To the point, I'm in my 30s. I've never played Roblox. I've seen my niece played it, and I thought it was cute watching her play, but I have no interest playing that game. Most adults have no interest in playing that game because we have the understanding of it is a kid's game. If you do play the game and you have a different perspective on that, please let me know. But with that being said, Roblox seriously failed to protect children. Schlep and other creators were proving there were predators on this app. They were reporting them. They would not get banned until the videos often came out. And they were taking children off platform to Discord. Again, not an encrypted app. Discord has access to the messages and everything. And my understanding is Discord at least does a better job to patrol and report and enforce the rules around that compared to Roblox. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But the reality is parents and politicians need to understand children aren't going to deep, dark, seedy places of the internet. A lot of the things that we had traumatized as kids, as a millennial, when we had, I'm going to traumatize some people with these mentions, the Pain Olympics, blue waffles. That was all on the open internet. We didn't have to go to any secret part of the internet. And a lot of people have this misguided fear of the dark. It's something that's ingrained into us as humans. We're afraid of the dark. We're afraid of the unknown because we don't know what is there. And it is the same thing with the idea of dark net. You have creators here on TikTok, on YouTube, giving you boogeyman stories of BS that doesn't really happen because they're preying on the ignorance and naivete of people thinking the darknet is as scary as they think it is. But in reality, the clearnet is far more scary than darknet. I have been on darknet in some forums, and a lot of those people there are honestly using it because that is one of the few places they can have proper free speech because they are in countries that are very repressive. I have been in chat rooms with LGBTQ plus people that were in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia and such that have to hide away their entire lifestyle because they are oppressed so badly. And being on Darknet is one of the few places that they can converse. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad places on the Darknet, just like there are bad places on the ClearNet. But the reality is predators are on open platforms. Just like they are found at parks, malls, playgrounds, and wherever other children are. They are found on Roblox. They are found on Discord. They are going to where they can prey upon these innocent children. And the only way to fix that is by policing these platforms better. By going after encrypted spaces, that's not really going to do much. The average kid doesn't care about those spaces. That's my soapbox moment. Okay? All right, let's catch up with chat. I love Grub custom themes, but I get what you mean. Oh yeah, the Grub bootloader. Yeah, they're fun to tweak. I've done some things with it. FIFA's very good, consistently good at taking accountability. I think I do okay. I'm not perfect, but I strive as best as I can to make myself a better person, because I have to look at myself as, and this is something that I've had the reality hit me on when I've been at DEF CON several times. I have been on making content for long enough that there are now people coming into the field influenced by the things that I've shown or done. And I am, whether I like it or not, a role model. And that means being the best man that I can be. And being a man means that you're accountable to your actions and knowing when you've done wrong. And if I've done wrong, look, I've had many people say, hey, Chief, I think you came off a little wrong on this position. And we can have a conversation about it. And I think that's the nuance that's gotten lost over the years. I think most people have a good heart. But I think maybe people are misguided on a lot of things. So I hope that I can, at least in many different ways, serve to help people find, the ability to understand we are human, we are imperfect, we can improve ourselves. We're not going to be perfect all the time. There's no one on this entire planet that is perfect. And anyone who says so is probably someone you should side-eye. I also don't like this holier-than-thou attitude some people have when it comes to well, I would never. And it's like, well, we walk in different lifestyles and different mistakes. And I've had to also unlearn a lot of wrong behavior from my own father. My father, I've talked about before, had some sexist views on different things, partially because he came from the Middle East, partially because he just was never checked on a lot of his, perceptions on things. And that's part of the reason why we don't speak, is he didn't like the fact that I would stand up to him very often. I remember, there's an example I gave before where we were in Chicago one time for a convention, dental convention. And we had to check out of a hotel. And what ended up happening was he got pissed off that the hotel didn't clean our rooms. And if you know me by now, I don't like people cleaning my room when I'm there. I always put the do not disturb sign on. It's a privacy thing. I don't want people going through when my stuff's there, that. So I didn't have a big issue. And he made a big stink about it, how they didn't clean the room. Well, apparently the hotel, when you actually walked in the foyer, said, we don't do the cleaning of rooms. If you want your room cleaned, you have to ask for it. He made this big stink where he literally was yelling at the clerk. And I had to yell at my dad. And then he yelled at the manager. And I was yelling at my dad for yelling at the manager. And he literally had the audacity to say, how come you're never on my side? And I'm like, because you're effing wrong. Imagine if that was me when I worked in retail and you had some random stranger yelling and berating your kid doing his job. How would you feel? And I remember, this is part of the reason why my dad and I, don't really speak, is, he never could understand, you get more flies with honey than vinegar. Look, I've been pissed off many times. There's been mistakes made, things like that. And I will make the best effort to, the saying, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Go to the person, be nice to them, and I will, even if I know I'm going to get upset, preface it with, look, I'm very frustrated right now. If I raise my voice, I want you to know I am not raising my voice at you. I am just frustrated at the situation. So I apologize in advance, and then we'll get into it. Do you know how many times I've had customer service and such give me better deals, offers, fix the problem in way better ways, and all that, because I was just kind enough to be like, look, this is the situation, and remind them while they're doing it. I'm like, look, you're doing a great job. I'm just frustrated. Anyway. But yeah. I'm not good with a lot of that stuff, if you can't understand. I like to be understanding and respectful of other people's views. Like, let me put it this way. If it doesn't bother me directly and personally, then why should I care? I have plenty of friends who are trans. They say, hey, I want to be called this way. Fine by me, buddy. And once in a while, I may, call them by the wrong pronoun. And they know it's an accident, and they're just like, hey, chief, just so you know, you, called me a him. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. My bad. It happens. But they know my heart's in the right place. But yeah, anyway. Sorry, that got me on a tangent there. The do not disturb sign is great until they decide they want to ignore it and try to enter your room, which happened to me in Vegas. Ugh. Yeah, that unfortunately has been happening during DEF CON and stuff. And it's gotten people pissed off. I heard, what was it, at the last con, they walked in on women that were literally stepping out of the shower and were butt naked. Huge invasion of privacy. Working in customer service is so humbling. Oh, absolutely. I actually tell everyone, before you do any career, at least spend 6 months to a year in customer service. In a retail position, a service position of some kind. See how crappy you get treated, and then learn how to never treat someone else. Companies will ban retro games. They do not want to compete with their old library. Yep. Has to have constant money increase in the typical consumer system. True. Chris Hansen has been trying to revive his career for like a while now. Yeah, I think that dude needs to like retire. He came out of retirement for, what you call it? Did my Twitch stream just go derpy? Hold on. Trying to see what's going on with the stream. Let me make sure it's not being... Yeah, I think it was stuttering. Nope, I think we're good. I'm just gonna mute that so I can at least monitor it. Okay, I don't know. That was weird. I'm dropping frames occasionally. But it's also weird seeing me in a delay. You. People, one thing that makes me laugh from Plus Life Experience is I at one point worked for a sauna company. They had a unit in like 2000 to 2004 that was like branded with their company, and it had a lifetime warranty. The company that made the units went under between 04 and 2023, we'll say, and so the company I worked for could only provide best effort support as they weren't the origin manufacturer. Could try to help with their where they can find hardware, but it was 20-year-old electronics no one was producing. People got butt hurt that they couldn't be given free replacement parts when they aren't being given, even being produced. That'll happen. I play the game, but only with my friends that I know are in 18 in private server mode. Are you talking about Roblox? Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. If you're playing with your buddies and, that's, just you, but I doubt you're going out there wanting to play with kids. Like, let me put it this way. My nieces, my eldest niece, she has me on Discord. I love her. Do not get me wrong. I don't want to play games with her. With my friends and everything like that. One, the games she's into, like Roblox, stuff like that, they don't tickle my fancy. But, it's kind of weird when you're in your 30s playing with a 12-year-old and then also having to censor yourself. Although I will say, I absolutely love saying double entendre things that mess with her mom, because it is so funny when jokes go over a kid's head and the parents are laughing and then the kids are like, what's so funny? And we'll be like, we'll tell you when you're older. That I do enjoy. Oh, speaking of which, I have to get them their WISP t-shirts, Women in Security and Privacy t-shirts. I want to get them to be STEMinists. You think Opera GX is spyware? Should I switch to Firefox? Do I think it is? Oh, I know it is. And this is not me, you know, tinfoil hat moment. I've talked about this in TikTok and everything. I probably should make a YouTube video about it. There have been people that actually did analyses on Opera GX. Let me see if I can find the... There was a deep dive I found a while ago that actually went into the companies and everything there. There's the company that owns them. Okay, I think this was it. Yeah, it was on a NeoCities site. You know, the super reliable sites have crappy user interfaces from the 1990s. That's how you know it's credible. Okay, anyway. This is just straight Opera. Not even Opera GX. Spyware level extremely high. Opera makes about 83 unsolicited requests on its first run. By default, it spies on all your browsing, works closely with advertisers and trackers. It is integrated with Facebook Meta, one of the biggest privacy violators in the world, has Google as its default search engine, and is closed source. Yeah, you can use Google, start page, things like that, but we all know Google is basically making money off your data. Opera makes geolocation requests. Anytime you visit a website, Opera will make a request to check, like this, to check if it's malicious. So it is literally spying on your whole browsing history. Now, you can make the argument of whether this is good or bad, but it is definitely a privacy invasion. You know, like, you can go through this. I think this wasn't even the actual site I remember, because there was a blog that I went into that was a little bit deeper. And it actually went into the company that bought them out. Because Opera used to be great. Let me make this very clear. Opera used to be an amazing browser. Thank you for the follow, Mateable. Opera used to be a great browser. I actually used to use them alongside Firefox back in the day when Opera had their own engine. But Opera nowadays is just Chromium with their own crap. Yeah, but Vivaldi isn't open source, if I recall. That's my gripe with them. I'm not, like, hating on them to the level of where I don't like Opera. But Opera does a lot of shady things. The company behind them is a Chinese consortium of investors. I'm not hating on them because they're Chinese. Let me make that very clear. But they are a consortium of investors. And whenever venture capital investment comes into a company, they're there to siphon out as much money as they want. Hey! Did I just get a hype? Did I just get a raid? Not dancing in hype. Hey, thank you for the raid. And the police. Yeah, I knew I got a raid. I was like, hey, thank you for that. Thank you for the raid, Not Dancing in Hype. For those of you that are new here, my name is Chief Geek, Chief Geek 3D as well. You can call me either one or just Chief. I do cybersecurity, gaming on Linux at times, and privacy, home labbing, technology discussions, all that. You came in the middle of while we were hating on Opera, the browser. It used to be great. Now it's just malware. And also, thank you for the follow, X4SD Bun. Thank you for that. How was your stream, Not Dancing in Hype? By the way, you should go check them out as well. I'm gonna see if I can get a shout out for you. Hold on. Is it? Dancing hype. I think this is. Did I shout out? There we go. Okay. There we go. Gave you a shout out there. Got my little bot to do the little blurb. Not dancing on hype, a digital Ronin traverses the peaks of cyberspace. This ethical hacker's journey is no walk in the park. It's a battle against the fall damage of the digital abyss. With firewall defenses up and programming katana drawn, she's reaching for the peak. Beyond Bless Ultra. Although it doesn't pull in my emotes that well. But yeah. Thanks for your content. I learned a lot from you. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate the kind words. Good soapbox. Also, parents should look at after their kids better. Absolutely. Now, like, for example, let's go back to my nieces. Their mom is vigilant about everything those kids do. She's busy. She's a working mom. But she still makes time to inspect what her kids are doing. She vets who her kids are talking to on Discord. I am one of, like, only, I think, 3 or 4 adults that are allowed to talk to her. And I normally don't initiate the conversation unless it's like, hey, I found a cool little project you might be in. 9 times out of 10, she hits me up with funny little things, you know, that kids do. I'm fine with that. She's my niece. Her mom audits the games that she's doing, the communities she's in, and the rule is you're allowed to do whatever you want, but I must be able to have access to it so I can at least supervise you. She's a great mom. And I think more parents need to do that. Get actively involved in their kid's life. Chief, this is a joke, but when are you going to add stream avatar? I've actually talked to Sugar about that. She's been a little bit busy with her new job and stuff, but once her schedule frees up a little bit, she's going to be updating some graphics and fun things for me. But yeah. But yeah, back to the point about Opera GX. Yes, you should switch to Firefox. For all the gripes and complaints that people have about Firefox, just Firefox is the most ethical browser out there right now that you can at least use to do your daily things. Bro, I switched to Win 10 from Win 7 a year ago, and now you gotta go to Windows 11, or come to the dark side. We've got red lightsabers, moonshine, cookies, and open source. The Linux. Also don't like that. Do not disturb... Oh, they clean after I left. Do not disturb sign is a godsend. Yeah, but the problem is Stabby the Abbey touched on, some hotels don't honor it properly, and they do quote-unquote security sweeps during cybersecurity conventions because, you know, hackers are bad, and they do mischievous things because they are in the dark net. They're in the dark space. You know, like what I talked about before, where people have this natural fear of the dark because it's synonymous with fear of the unknown. And people tend to be fearful of things they don't understand. People take advantage of people's ignorance of many different things to convince them of many things. Look at the political climate today. A lot of the people that hate on, like, say, the people that are coming over here as undocumented immigrants don't know undocumented immigrants, don't know their life struggle, don't know why they had to go through the avenues they did, don't know how hard it is to actually become an American citizen, as I know from my family coming here as a first-generation American from a Moroccan family. It's a very tough avenue, and a lot of people do not have the resources to do that. But you also have people that prey upon the ignorance of people when it comes to, you know, bigoted views of all kinds. How many of these people are hating on people in the LGBTQ and with all these, you know, misnomers, they're, you know, they're PDF files that they're downloading, and, you know, you know what I mean by that. And most of these people haven't ever sat down and talked with these people. Talked with people in the LGBTQ community to understand, look, they're just people. They just have a different lifestyle. People prey upon people's ignorance and fear to get a lot of the things they want. And if you have a more educated society, a more understanding society, a lot of the travesties that we experience in the world wouldn't happen. It happens on all sides. When you talk about Christian extremism, Muslim extremism, things like that, it all comes from a place of ignorance and fear of the things they don't understand, because they come from their bubble. I'm so thankful that I've been exposed to so many different things. I agree with that. I have the same exact view. I am thankful for the background and the upbringing I have that has allowed me to be the well-rounded individual that I am. I may be Jewish. I am maybe Middle Eastern, Moroccan specifically, and all that. But I have friends who are atheists, friends who are Satanists, Wiccans, witches. Some people say they're the same. I know there's a little bit of a difference between some of that stuff, but I digress. I know a person who... I have a couple friends that are into the old Norse religion. The pagans and all that. I think it's pagan. I should know better. I have one dude that is, has prayed to Baphomet. That statue. I made them a 3D printed item, I think. Yeah, no, I got a couple friends that do that. I have friends from all different walks of life and backgrounds, and they're all good people. We just see the world in different ways, and sometimes we sit down and we ask for each other's perspective. We may not agree with their perspective, but we want to understand their perspective. We have a saying in Judaism. There are 72 perspectives on the Torah, and they are all correct. That's actually why when you study Torah and Judaism, you're supposed to have a study partner so you can see different points of view and have a discussion and put yourself in their shoes. That's my little diatribe. I play Roblox because my kids play. That's fine. Like, look, if you're a parent, you want to play something with your kids and you want to bond with them, that's totally understandable in that, regard. Where I find it weird is when you have grown adults that are going into active child spaces to interact with children. That I find is weird and in most cases gross. Hotel Wi-Fi is really bad and insecure. Oh, you can say that twice. Oh, I was referenced on my Roblox comment on making coffee. Yeah. Will we lose total overtake of every asset of our lives to the ruling elites of narcissism? If things go the way they are, eventually, yes. But look, at a certain point, this is my... How do I put this into words? This is my perspective on things. You can only centralize a lot of the wealth so much until the wealth being centralized becomes meaningless. Because at a certain point, eventually people will topple over those systems. I think it is dangerous that the ultra wealthy have as much wealth as they do. But I do think it's also dangerous for them if they keep going in the trend that they are, because eventually it can cause a rebellion. Now, I'm not by any means advocating for violence, but we've seen it time and time again where, you have these aristocratic classes and things like that suppress the people, and the people eventually rebel and revolt. It's history. All my younger coworkers play that, so that's how I know about it. Yeah. I only know about Roblox because of my nieces. I've never played it. I don't even have it installed. I've never bought it. I have no reason to. The most childish game that I have played in a modern sense, like in terms of a game that I didn't grow up with, but came up after I was maybe a child, is Minecraft. But Minecraft is one of those games where it crosses the generations very often. Did you see the Israeli cyber official that got caught? I did not. There are horrible horror games that even I cannot stomach. Bro, definitely not for the kids. Oh yeah, definitely. There's a few games I would never have my nieces play. Being someone who's chronically online-ish, censoring myself gets harder and harder as I get older. Yeah, I get that. And let's not diminish the ability for the youth to process difficult media. Well, my generation is clear evidence of how we can be thrown traumatic things. Do you know how many people I've seen unalived just scrolling on the internet through like E-Bombs World and things like that? I mean, I mentioned the Pain Olympics, Blue Waffles, and all those other things. All right, what about Zen Browser? Well, Zen Browser is just, if I recall, a fork of Firefox, so it's fine. Same with, Florp. Florp is a fork of Firefox. Libre Wolf, fork of Firefox. They're all fine. Opera spyware. I'm on Spot Opera right now. Well, you know.
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
Brave Browser user stand up. Yeah, my mentor, she was actually a project manager for Brave Browser at one point. She's got a Wikipedia page and has her stuff and everything like that. She's an awesome woman. Helped educate me on how to speak with stakeholders and various different people at C-suite levels and stuff. Oh yeah, 2 girls, 1 cup. No, I intentionally tried to block that out of my mind. Thank you, vampire.
First off, fuck your bitch in the click you claim.
Brave is alright. The only gripe that I have with Brave is that it is another Chromium-based browser. So the reason why I also like Firefox is to get away from the Chromium monopoly. There's also a new browser in the work. I think it's called Ladybug. Yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't played with it much, though. Is that the guy who calls every browser spyware because he's like a weirdo? He has a website. Well, everyone on the internet has a website. That doesn't really narrow things down. No hate, Arrow Wings. Just saying. Though Opera and Opera GX is definitely spyware, but still, Vivaldi is the old Opera. Scrolling through, I got Vivaldi too. I haven't played with it too much. I think my issue with it was that it's still pretty closed source. I like my browsers to be open sourced. It's good. You peeked. Can't you just block that stuff with like Simple Wall and the like? It's not an issue of that you can block it. It's that you shouldn't have to block it. And the average person isn't going to be able to, you know, understand what things to block. So that's why I'm against using those browsers and, you know, having a lot of people be educated on the issues. Am I weird that I switched to Windows 10 from Windows 7 a year ago? Yes! Yes!
Oh, that's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out that.
You do not go to an unsupported operating system. I know, I get it. Windows XP was the GOAT. It was amazing. But you don't see me installing it anymore and using it because, well, it's not secure. It's not supported. So don't do that. You know? So, oh yeah, you mentioned the Israeli cyber official that got busted. Let me see, hold on. Israeli cyber official. Senior Israeli cyber official detained in Las Vegas as part of child solicitation probe. Ew. stone him. I was trying to figure out a way to, like, be correct with this, but I'm like, if there's ever a guy that deserves a stoning, and I don't mean the 420 cents. So if you don't see what I'm talking about here, child solicitation. This is just so wrong. And let me tell you, PDF files are definitely something that unites everyone in Israel against them. That's just, it's a no-no. Off with their schlong. Oh, they have his face here. Here, we'll at least put that out there. So if you see this schmuck, you know what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But you know what to do. He looks English? Yeah. Okay. Speaking of family, as an uncle, I normally keep my nephews on safe stuff, but I even asked my brother if I could upgrade his internet to block websites to protect kids, but my brother said he is too busy to learn which he is, and the mom doesn't care. See, that's the problem that we have, is people are apathetic and laissez-faire to raising their kids. I have the firm belief that if you have a child, it is your right, it's not your right, it is your duty and obligation to make sure you protect your kid as best as possible from the evils of the world. But you also have a duty and an obligation to educate them on the evils and perils of the world to better protect them for the reality of life as they grow into an adult. I also have the firm belief that, yes, every child deserves having parents, but not every parent deserves a child. I think there are too many people that are not smart enough having kids. I don't by any means think we should do, like, you know, any scary kind of ideas like eugenics or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that shouldn't be parents. That's all I'm saying. Then you introduce those kids into cycles, and it's just a bad pattern that repeats itself. So thankful I've been... Oh, yeah, we talked about that. I've been exposed to so many things. But the economy, they all say, with no proof plus anti-immigration is clearly a big pro-racism campaign. Well, yeah. Have you heard about how many legal Americans have been swept up in a bunch of these raids? Now, I will say this. If I come across ICE... and you ever see me arrested, I will tell you how it happened. Because I yelled, "La migra!" and ran the other way. I will be the decoy. Just remember, I like my ice crushed. Okay. Delta Force goes live 10 p.m. August 18th, and what is that Diamonds thing? What's Delta Force? In the UK, immigrants make up half the NHS. Without immigration, we would not work as a country. You know, that's the same thing in the US. A lot of people don't understand just how many immigrants actually take care of the orderlies, of nursing, Immigrants are some of the most hardworking in the American society. I know this firsthand because I'm the child of one and the grandchild of a few. And they are some of the hardest working people. My grandmother used to work 3 jobs to take care of her kids when she came to this country. I would have yelled Sharmuta. See, the problem is, a lot of them are too ignorant to know what that means. But you yell La Migra and then start running the other way, they gonna know. They gonna think you just running. Why is public Wi-Fi still so insecure? Because the average business that makes their Wi-Fi public for you to actually set it up and use it doesn't care about the security. They care about you just having access. And security is an investment that not every business wants to actively put into it. Now, there are a good amount of businesses that do at least separate and have some decently protected public Wi-Fi, but those are few and far between. I will be completely honest. Will that situation ever change, or is it just more cheaper to not have security? Yeah, so it's just a matter of cost, because you have to think about it this way. If I want to properly secure a public Wi-Fi, the expense, it's not a cheap one. Whereas I can plug in many off-the-shelf routers, have a business network, and then a guest network, and then call it a day. But to do that properly, you're talking on the low end $1,000 versus just going off the shelf and doing it. It's an argument we're actually having at work because we offer a guest Wi-Fi, and I've had the argument of, why are we having them go over our main pipe? Why don't we pull in another internet just for the guest network? That way, if anything goes on the guest network that we don't really approve of, our IP doesn't get flagged. Because it's just that, public. Yep, pretty much. It's public. That's why it's insecure, because everyone has access to it. Pick feudalism, baby. I had to cut off a friend because she was roleplay dating on Roblox. Ew! Roleplay dating a bunch of... Ew! Kids, no! Ew. And she tried justifying it as, but it's just in the game as her characters and doesn't stretch into real life. As if I'd care. No. 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 I refuse. No! No! Hell no! 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 That ain't even cool. Like, no, these are kids. That's like another way of basically grooming a kid into thinking that this is normal and then normalizing this. No. Ew, no. You want to role play with another consenting adult that is past the age of majority? Fine. Do that. That's cool. But kids should be kids. Kids should only date other kids. Even in a role-playing set. Ew. Ew. Ugh. I don't like that. Yikes indeed. Yikes indeed, Abby, on that one. There's no security because imagine working at a McDonald's, like getting asked every 5 minutes what the Wi-Fi, well, you wouldn't need to do that. I think in terms of security, it wouldn't just be like the Wi-Fi password. Having a password doesn't really secure it all that much, except from making it a bit more private to access it, and then you have AES encryption over it. But there's ways that you can secure the Wi-Fi with IDS, IPS, firewalling, malicious sites, things like that. But yeah. I just got back from ads to kids date kids. So we were talking about how Arrow Wings was talking about they had to cut off a friend because she was roleplay dating on Roblox a bunch of kids, and she tried justifying it as, but it's in the game as her characters and doesn't stretch into real life as if I'd care. And I went on this whole diatribe about that's not cool, that's not healthy, that seems like pretty sick behavior to me. And that, kids should be kids. Adults should not be, poisoning the well giving them ideas of, you know, things like that. It's one thing if I go wear a dress and put a tutu on and have an imaginary tea party with my niece. Because that's what all good men will do when a little girl in your family asks you to have a tea party. I mean, otherwise it's rude. But that's a whole other thing. Chief in a tiara is a must now. There's probably a picture out there somewhere of that. There's actually probably a picture, no joke, of the one time I was at Disneyland, and for one of my friends of the family, I was out with their family just for fun. I had the Disney princess makeup put on me. There's a photo somewhere of me getting dolled up that way. I did it for kicks and giggles. There also may have been a lot of alcohol involved. I will not deny that fact of the story. Look, I am completely secure in my masculinity. Okay? You know, I will totally do stupid, goofy things once in a while like that. Brave is goated. Roblox have horror games, gruesome. Well, Roblox, my understanding is that you can also make games inside of games. It's interesting, because my niece actually codes some stuff for Roblox, if I recall correctly. And it's kind of interesting, the things she's told me. I have no interest in getting into Roblox, because I don't want to be around a bunch of kids. You know, like, don't get me wrong. If I'm at a friend's party at their house, and they brought their kids over, that's cool, but I'm gonna go hang with the parents. The kids just happen to be there. If they're kids in, you know, my family or that, yeah, I'll babysit and, you know, watch them and, you know, make sure they're safe and everything, but yeah, you get the point. I stumbled upon videos of people being beheaded by pocket knives way before it could have been deepfaked by AI. I was 14 at the time. Yep. Welcome to the millennial trauma, the millennial Gen X trauma. There's also, the Ladybug browser. All kinds of life experiences out there. I got raised by a biker mechanic type. Definitely grew up trial by fire life. Which doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. Yep. Just try Googling it. You mean Ladybird? Yeah, Ladybird, I think was it. And Goatsy. God damn it! Why are we bringing all the traumatic things into this chat? Goatsy. I forgot about Goatsy until that. You know what? For that, you just lost the game. How about that? How about that? Okay? You just lost the game. Hold on. I'm early 2000, well in April, so I grew up with less filters too. Fair enough. Got back onto Firefox after years because of laziness. I missed Firefox. Yeah. Solution, terminal-only web browsing. I can agree with this. W3M all the way. Links is okay too. Any services you use to not use your personal credit debit card? So I haven't really found many services to allow you to anonymize your credit card, but privacy.com, not affiliated with them, does allow you to mask your debit card. I generally use credit cards because they have a little bit more protection around them, plus the points. And I don't carry balances. I wonder if a CLI browser exists that can load media in the interface somehow, and everything else will just load normal or something. I think W3M can do that. You install W3M-IMG, and then it can load images as well. I don't think it can do video, though, because it can't really do JavaScript and things. But it's a possibility. I could use some tech help. I recently got my computer back from the repair shop after getting a hinge replaced. As part of the services, they do a virus scan. Well, everything worked fine when I brought it in. Now, since getting it home, the whole keyboard is warm. It only used to be over WASD keys, and the fan doesn't rev up like it did before it brought it in. It used to rev up more even when I first got it. So probably what your fan's probably going bad. You probably need to clean your heatsink out and everything. So, yeah, I don't know how tech savvy you are, but you can pull the heatsink out on a laptop. If I presume this is a laptop you're talking about, because WASD keys and keyboard. You'd probably need to pull the heatsink out, repaste the thermal paste, and then get some good, like, 91% rubbing alcohol on a cheap toothbrush and scrape that heatsink out along with some compressed air. It's probably caked with stuff in there. And then the fan itself probably is on the way out, and you probably want to get that replaced. There's many OEM replacement fans out there. You can look up your model of laptop and the heatsink and all that. But you usually can replace just the fan, not the entire heat pipe assembly. So you're probably talking like $5 to $20 for a fan, depending on what you're looking at. But in the Discord, we can help a little bit better. Working on switching to Linux from 10. Nice! Didn't some dude make a WinXP VM and connect it to the internet and it was just massively flooded with viruses? Oh yeah, we've done all that kind of stuff. We've also seen people install Windows XP and install all the things we famously used back in the day, like Bonzi Buddy. Do y'all remember Bonzi Buddy? The purple gorilla thing? Bonzi Buddy. The original AI spy bot. Which reminds me, do you remember the software spy bot Search and Destroy? It's been a while since I used that. Dude's supposed to be elite hacker and got caught in the most dumb way. Oh, we talking about the cyber official in Israel? Yeah, you'd be surprised how a lot of these quote-unquote cyber professionals in, like, management levels and working in the government are horrible with cybersecurity. I'm just being honest with you. And anyone who wants to touch a kid should have a rock thrown at them. My opinion. I support tar and feather instead. This is a fair alternative. I will accept your tar and feathering over my stoning. Either one. Damn. Monty Python reference? Yeah. Still can't believe he's head of cybersecurity for a country. Yeah. Lightly skinned and tied to a cactus, nude in desert, then given a bucket of lemon juice poured on them. Ooh. I don't know whether to be impressed or fearful by your imagination.
Better watch your back before she turn into a killer.
Does Israel have the death penalty? So no, Israel does not have the death penalty. In the history of the state of Israel, there's actually only been 2 people that have ever been put to death. So a lot of this has to do with the Jewish belief that we don't necessarily believe in a death penalty. Now, some people will point to the Torah and say, well, there's all these penalties for death and everything, but there's a caveat there. And this is why I tell a lot of Christians, don't just study the text. You got to study the supporting pieces of the Torah. You know, we've got Gemara, Halacha, we've got Talmud, Midrash, all these different parts. Well, anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's a court is not allowed to kill a person more than once every 7 years. Otherwise, they're considered a bloodthirsty court. I think it's 7 years. Maybe it's 7D. I think it's 7. So in the entirety of the state of Israel, there has only been 2 people ever put to death. The first one was, I think it was a soldier, as I recall. I don't remember the specifics. That was tried under the original British mandate laws. And then they quickly changed the laws. The second one was the funny mustache aficionado. Trying to remember their name. Was it Himmler? No, Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann. That was in 1962. And that was in relation to you know, the crimes of World War II. And in all honesty, I'm not necessarily a proponent of the death penalty. Except for PDFs. Because we've found a lot of times where people are wrongfully convicted of things. And often they're not found innocent until after the irreversible action has been done. School should educate kids on that stuff as well. Yep. Some people are screwing too much, that is for sure. My brother grew up on Xbox 360, so he knows the dangers. We've all been in a COD lobby! I really like Tiny Core OS at the moment. Okay. See Idiocracy. We actually had that on movie night a few nights ago in the Discord. Oh, by the way, if you're not already part of the Discord that we have, you should join. And the Matrix server as well. Links are in bio. They found a new way to mod the 360 BTW via software. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Chief in a tiara is a must now. I haven't looked into the whole Roblox thing. Only thing I'm interested in Roblox is creating worlds games. Hope they got their shite sorted. Yeah. Show us. I'd have to find the pictures of me in princess makeup. It's somewhere. Yeah, Roblox is fun. I play a lot of survival games in Roblox. Yeah, I hear it's kind of interesting for, you know, getting into game making. But it's just the idea of it's heavily dominated by children, so I have no reason to want to play this. Similar to Club Penguin. Y'all remember Club Penguin? It's the same reason as I don't really have an inclination to get into that, because it just feels weird to be in a place where you know primarily has kids, as I also am simulcasting to TikTok. Although TikTok's really changed from like a child dominated platform into, I think there are quite a lot more adults on there now than there are children these days. I could be wrong. But then again, that's all I see are adults. I wanted to try my hand at making computer science games on Roblox, but Roblox is extremely hostile about letting Linux users run it. I gave up after failing several times. Yeah, they have some weird anti-cheat in there. Just lost the game. Oh yeah, that's right. I got bad and I started saying you lost the game. Don't forget Roblox banned a user who was trying to protect kids. Yeah, we were just talking about that. You may have came in a little bit late. You introduced me to the Dream Machine and I'm deep diving. Yeah, it's a decent machine to, you know, do off-the-shelf setup for, you know, a decent home lab or business. Let's see, it was a fun one, though. Like, there's this Disney Mickey Mouse camera that looked exactly like it, and others, oh my god. CLI YouTube would be sick. Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me of lemonparty.org with your talk about those gross-out sites. You're welcome. God damn it! Been trying to download Ubuntu on Android, and it's been a setback after setback. Just no GPU support. Well, yeah, Ubuntu on Android device, it's just not that great. That's why if you're on Android devices, I still generally recommend Graphene OS, Calyx OS, stock Android, you know, vanilla Android from the Android open source project. Yeah. Some Dell laptops, I've seen them just stop powering the fan altogether. In those cases, I soldered the fan leads to the inside of a nearby USB port and called it a day. Fair enough. I remember Clippy. You know, if you ask Cortana in Windows 10, how is Clippy? There's an Easter egg. You know that? Clippy should come back. I do agree with that. Didn't the Mossad chase Eichmann down? I think I saw a documentary about that one. I don't think it was Mossad. I think it was Shin Bet. I think. Maybe. I know there's like a special task force. I know there's Shin Bet. I know there's Mossad. Changed equals chase. Club Penguin no longer has kids, I hear, and they have an adult server. Does Club Penguin still exist? Seriously? And it's an adult server? I have a penguin avatar. For using Roblox on Linux, Google Vinegar for Roblox. It's working for me whenever I feel like it. Are you talking about actually drinking vinegar to make your computer work? I am so confused right now. Kidding. Speaking of networking equipment, I got myself the OpenWRT 1 router. I haven't touched OpenWRT in years. The last time I've done the WRT stuff, I think it was on an Asus AC66U. I think before that, the Linksys WRT54Gs and its various iterations they've had. That was such a great hackable router, I'll tell you. Did you hear about the Clippy PFP protest? No, but I've been seeing people putting Clippy as their avatar, and I wasn't really aware of what the situation is on that. No, it's called Vinegar, but that is funny. Okay. Why would they call it Vinegar? I'm just curious. Yeah, Vinegar is a wine wrapper to run Roblox on Linux. Oh, really? Interesting. I have no idea, LMAO. I never looked into that. What, the, PFP? Interesting. Okay, so it's this open source project. The Clippy PFP is mainly right to repair activists. So what's the reasoning behind it? There's got to be more to it than just, oh, you're a right to repair activist. An open source configurable fast bootstrapper for running Roblox Studio on Linux. So this studio, so it's like the studio, the designer, or, yeah. Because it's not wine. Oh, because it's spoiled wine. Got it. The Clippy PFP is a protest telling companies to go back to the day where AI doesn't record you. Yeah. I'd trust Bonzi Buddy more than I would trust Microsoft Recall. I'm kind of curious why nobody has brought back, Bonzi Buddy. In the day of AI. Like, imagine if you took Bonzi Buddy, combined it with, like, ChatGPT or whatever voice LLM, like Meta, and their voice thing. That'd be interesting. Studio is the IDE. Okay. Last I used it, it can do Studio and regular Roblox, I think. It was only a day I used it for... because my friend wanted to play a funny Roblox game. Oh, okay, I gotcha. It's a Louis Rossmann initiative, and it's to raise awareness for right to repair and right of ownership of media like music, movies, games. Yeah. You will own nothing, and you shall be happy. So I'm looking over this, Vinegar project. So apparently it's written in Go. That's interesting. I haven't really played with Go. I've been thinking about it. I still, like, can't find a use case for me to build things in Go. I stick to Python. At least for me. But yeah, Vinegar is old, doesn't work. There's another program by the same person. So, if it's not Vinegar, what is he calling it? Mold? I think it's called Sober. Oh, I think I saw mentions to that. Yeah. So, on another note, did you know that TikTok is getting really serious about trying to work with creators? I've been talking to a few of my creator friends, and TikTok has been approaching quite a few of us, including me. Like, they're trying to, like, professionalize a lot of their stuff. Although, I find it hilarious. They're doing all that, but yet, they didn't let me know they were sponsoring DEF CON, and apparently they had some kind of a party meetup thing. Which, I'm not hating on them. I just find it hilarious how they overlook the one guy, or one of the few guys, that has had DEF CON content on TikTok. Like, no crap. I'm betting if we look up on TikTok, you'll probably see me. I'm just curious. Let me look this up. DEF CON. Well, there's all the new stuff from DEF CON, but yep, there's me. Yep, I got a couple videos in there. See? So you can see, like, look. There's me. There's me again. There's me again. There's me again. Hey, look. There's me. There's Kernel Dump. There's me again. Yeah. I just found that funny. There's me again. Hey, look. It's me. Oh, look. It's me again. Me again. Me. Oh, look. Me in the background. Me. 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 Like, I am dominating a lot of this if you scroll down. A lot of this is me. But, anyway, I found it funny. TikTok was apparently officially sponsoring DEF CON, as I could understand it. They had some kind of meetup. A couple of my friends were there, and I was like, I had no clue this thing was happening. And I'm not mad at all. I find it hilarious. But it seems like TikTok is trying to professionalize a lot of things as well. Which I think they've been needing to do for a while. Because now at least we can have a forum to talk to the people there. Because there's been a problem where, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of cybersecurity content creators don't get too deep into content. Because if you show any bit of code, there is a risk that you will get banned. It happened to Seeknay. Seeknay is a IAM content creator, identity and access management content creator. Makes great content. You know what he got banned on TikTok for? PowerShell lessons. He was teaching people about arrays in PowerShell. He got banned for that. He did win his appeal, but he lost his account for a few days. And it's happened to me where the reason why I don't really do much in-depth content on TikTok anymore is because I've had my content restricted. I've been banned for several days. I haven't lost my account, thankfully. For talking about things that, you know, were in Bash, showing you command line, tips and tricks, and, you know, just things that you do in a normal course of your day stuff. They would often get labeled as illegal or regulated goods and, you know, dangerous behaviors and stuff like that. Getting banned for showing PowerShell is crazy, LOL. Oh yeah, it's crazy. But I am glad that TikTok is taking the approaches to approach the community in tech and cyber as well as other places. And we can now have an open dialogue to how repressive their algorithm has been, their moderation practices are, to stifle the education that they so desire, especially in the STEM fields. Thank you, Dora, with the gun. Didn't you hear just opening the terminal is now hacking? Oh my god, do you know how many times I've gotten stopped by airport police because I am literally doing my work on terminal and some crazy Karen sees, oh my god, he's hacking the airport! Like, no joke. I was flying a couple years ago for a work conference. Okay? I was flying for work. I forgot what I was doing exactly. I forgot what I was building, but I know I was like working on like a Terraform for pushing a Lambda into AWS. Some serverless coding stuff. Nothing major. Just putting together something like that. You know, a little bit of help with ChatGPT for some logic fixes and little stanzas and stuff like that I needed. Nothing major. And apparently some Karen looked over at my screen and actually alerted security to me. And I had to speak to security and be like, look, I'm in cybersecurity. I'm doing my job. This isn't scary. This is all that. And because, yeah, you have boomers that don't want to mind their damn business. I work at a college, and when I have to PowerShell something on a student's computer to get an app to work, they immediately think I'm hacking. Oh, yeah, it's hilarious. You know? You open terminal and do sudo apt update, and people blew their minds. It also happened when I was in Israel. I was flying back, because I've been using Linux for years. This was like 2009. I got stopped by airport security there. Curious about what's happening. And I literally look at them and I'm like, I'm just updating my Linux laptop. And I needed to, you know, connect to something. This whole big ordeal. I got interviewed for like 15 minutes over that crap. They should have offered you a contract. I wish. But yeah, people are so ignorant, and a lot of this, I have to say, is the fault of Hollywood. Hollywood is sensationalized and over-embellished to absurdist proportions. About what hacking looks like. It's ridiculous. That's why I update my laptops before I leave for somewhere now. Yeah, but this was 2009. I was much younger. Totally different time as well. Nowadays, I wouldn't do that stuff. I always update my laptops before I go. But, yeah, and we're still gonna have those problems. I've been questioned by airport security for my lockpicks. Didn't seem to have issues with all the firearms I checked, apparently. Oh, sure! Go to an airport, check a case with a rifle and a couple handguns. Nobody cares! But oh my god, you have a lockpick! It's code red! I'm not even freaking kidding. Sometimes people's priorities are kind of effed. Hey, you saw me at DEF CON? Cool. Happy hacking, bud. Hope you enjoyed the con. And it literally says in the TSA website explicitly that lockpicks are okay. Wait, it does? I should have that printed out next time. Because I put lockpicks in my bag because they're just a tool. You're gonna jip me open the cockpit door. I mean, I got a little bit of ground school. Worst case happens, I can maybe, take over an emergency, but I'm still a crap pilot. That was your first one? Nice! Yeah, the first one's always an interesting one because it's so overwhelming. You'll enjoy your second one even more. Because the second one, so you probably made some friends and buddies at the first one. If you haven't, you should. Because at my first one, I didn't really go out to the parties and stuff as much. On your second one, make a point to go to the parties. And put yourself out there. Meet people. Every year I go to DEF CON, my hacker family grows more and more. Like this time, this is my third con. Yeah, third. I thought I did 4, but third. I know how to count 1, 2, 3. 1. Sorry. I have maybe I think I had like a couple dozen people in my hacker family now. We have a Signal chat that is like still going off a few times an hour here from Hacker Summer Camp. And I feel like that family's going to grow even more from Hacker Summer Camp next year. And the thing I love about DEF CON and Hacker Summer Camp as a whole is, well, the reality is in my everyday life, the only time I really get to hang out with people that genuinely think a lot of the things that I do is cool and interesting and, we can tinker and hack shit and all that is when I'm on my content. It's a big reason why I do the Twitch streams. I like to connect with y'all. But when I'm at Hacker Summer Camp, I'm just surrounded by this awesome family of people with all sorts of different knowledge from all sorts of different walks of life. And it's this beautiful thing where I make some of the most amazing friends. Like, Stabby, I got to meet her. She's one of the chillest people. I straight up told her in chat for a while, like, we're gonna have to hang out. When I finally ran into her in person, the first time, I was swarmed by several people at the voting village, she'll tell you. I did at least do my best to try to say hi. The second time we ran into each other, we were at a pool party. And we basically say, come on, girl, we're going to party. We had a good time. We went from the DEF CON pool party, through the Tesla tunnel, to the village parties. We definitely got sloshed, had a bunch of great laughs along the way, and a great time. Also, it was kind of fun to see Aaron smash you into the pool. He was throwing me and you into the pool. It was funny. In some states, the legality of log picks are a bit more gray. Yep. I was Sharknado. Yeah, that's right. You had that shark fin on your back. But yeah, it was fun running into so many different people and hanging out with them. And it was interesting hearing a lot of people's stories, especially the first time DEF CONers, many people that heard about it from me and got to meet me in person. I did my best to try to, give people the attention. But there were times where I was swarmed by like 5, 6, 7 people. And I tried my best. I did, make a bunch of stickers for everyone. Because I do at least, like to get in the hacker culture of, giving everyone stickers. But yeah. The parties were crazy. I loved it. VetCon was amazing. They had an open bar. Yeah, I hear VetCon is really cool. I gotta make my way to VetCon one year, even though I'm not a vet. I'm a son of a vet. But yeah, the parties were awesome. There were definitely a few people that were too partied out on Saturday night. I think like one dude had to get wheeled away by an EMT. I think they were on one. One dude passed out in the bathroom stall. A goon had to help them up. And then another person, I literally walked by and I saw them collapse onto the floor as I was walking by with a beer in my hand. Yeah. Party on, Wayne! Party on, Garth. Yeah, it was great. And then the rave, was it Cyberdalia or whatever that? That rave was pretty fun too. They also had the retro arcade. That was really fun. They had a table, a foosball table, that was 3 tables just smashed together. It was a super long foosball table. There were like 3 or 4 balls in there at any given time. It was just pure chaos in the best way. It was a fun time. Roblox is so bad it woke this guy up. Oh, no text-to-speech made a video? Okay. VetCon had a Nerf shooting range. That's fun. I went to the DEF CON shoot. So for those of you that don't know, the day before DEF CON is the DEF CON unofficial shoot. It is off-site. It's about a 20-30 minute drive from the hotel. We're out in the middle of the desert, and we had Colonel Dump, me, Aaron was out there, and we were all shooting guns. Colonel's brother-in-law was there too. We're all shooting guns. Brought my rifle, brought a couple handguns, taught a bunch of people how to shoot. I did find out that my AR-15's BCG, bolt carrier group, was not staked down properly to mil spec, and it came undone partially through, so it wasn't cycling. So I have a new one coming in that's going to fix that in a slight upgrade. Wasn't that the guy that dumps on Discord constantly? Maybe? Maybe. Okay, so you know what? I do have to make a complaint about. I was just looking through some of these TikTok videos. They have a strict camera policy, and this is beyond trust. They're violating this so bad. Like, look, you got people in the background and all of that. You're not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be recording this stuff. That's why I don't have a lot of DEF CON content, because I've got friends who are goons. That's what we call the volunteers, and the staff, that they communicate with me, and I am very meticulous about making sure I don't invade anyone's privacy. That's just a little thing. What are some of your favorite pew-pews, if you can say in code? I've got my AR. I've got my Springfield XD. The Taurus GX4. I don't need to say those in code. Those are pretty nice. Those are some of the ones I have right now. I want to get some more. I want to get a TAR-21. I want to get a 12-gauge pump. Need to get a shotty. I want to get a Tech 9. That'd be fun. Got to link up with you next year for the DEF CON shoot. I got a mill background and can help. Cool. So before I do the DEF CON shoot and everything, the Discord is usually where I try to organize a lot of that stuff. That's where I had a lot of people that that's where I shared a lot of the information for, you know, Meshtastic information, all that. The Discord and Matrix servers are a great place to be connected with a bunch of other people. And I was sharing information as I was finding it about Meshtastic and everything else, because I couldn't make content fast enough as it was coming out. I like that policy. Yeah, I like DEF CON's policy. B-Sides had the same policy when it came to shooting, you know, people and everything. Not with firearms, I mean, in terms of a camera, to be clear. Yeah, join the Discord. The links are in the bio. But yeah, I'm very meticulous about making sure no one is in the background. That's why there's only one video of me at the actual con recording. And that was with Digital Empress. And that was at the voting village. And that was because I had explicit consent and permission to be recording that. There was one person that leaned their head over. I believe they were staff. But we were, you know, telling people, like, we're going to be recording in this area. Please don't, you know, get into the shot if you don't want to be seen. Straightforward. That's why if you ever ran into me, IRL, at DEF CON, most of the time I would make a point to say, let's take a selfie, but can we get against the wall or something here? Because I don't want people to accidentally have their photo taken that don't want to, you know, be in the photo or aren't able to consent. Had a DEF CON submission, but it didn't get accepted, so I'm working on a framework to submit for 34. So I'm working on a possible Sky Talk on some stuff. Sky Talks are a part of Hacker Summer Camp. They used to be part of DEF CON. They're not. They're part of B-Sides. That you are not allowed to have any electronics on. Like, I had to turn off my smartwatch, I had to turn off my phones. You know, you have to have old-fashioned pen and paper if you want to take notes, because there are some tricky things spoken. And I have a couple of Sky Talk ideas of things I want to talk about. One of them is with my buddies, and it's about how we survived working for Russian oligarchs. How we discovered that. Working on some other content. I'm trying to convince Yitz to actually make some content because he comes from a marketing background and he can shed a light on so many dark practices that people do to target you for ads that people are just not aware of. Like, he straight up told me, like, I am that asshole that will take a GPS tag on your car to get more data on you. You ever been to CCC? You talking about the Chaos Communication Conference? No, I have not, but it is on my list to eventually check out. Unfortunately, as you can, you know, understand, flying from the US to Europe, because I think it's in Germany if I'm not mistaken, is an expensive investment and endeavor. Not saying that I wouldn't ever do it, but God willing, let's say my content creation does well enough, and I can support that, I will more than gladly go to the Triple C. I think it'd be a fun conference. I love going to all these cybersecurity conferences around the world and meeting people from all different walks of life and backgrounds and communities and making one giant cybersecurity family across the world. But unfortunately, I don't have that much disposable income. Both DEF submissions are my dissertation for a PhD in offensive cyber engineering. Fingers crossed. Nice. But Kilo, DEF CON is hard to get talks in because so many people are submitting. You may want to consider putting a talk in at B-Sides. Not just the one in Las Vegas, but if you go look up your local city, you'll be surprised there's probably a B-Sides in your area. Start doing that. Put the talks out there. And then you can prepare yourself a little bit more for future talks. If you have a local DEF CON group, even better. Present in front of them. A lot of times, these local DEF CON groups will let you practice in front of them, give you feedback, improve things. Because I had a couple ideas for, like, don't be a square, use Cubes OS, stuff like that. I think it'd be interesting. But yeah, I think, you know, it'd be great. Colleges also give talks too, giving one next month at Western Governors University. Nice. Yeah. But I mean, colleges are also a different kind of atmosphere as to compared like B-sides and DEF CON and Triple C, and you know, the hacker culture is a totally different beast. But I mean, like, get as much experience as you can with that. I think it'll be great for you. But yeah, happy hacking, bud. Well, it is also almost 11 o'clock. I'm getting tired. I have work tomorrow. So I want to thank you all for joining me for this awesome stream. We'll probably do some gaming next time. But make sure if you haven't already to check out all my socials. TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, all the platforms. Don't forget to join the Discord, the Matrix. We'll do some gaming on Linux next time. Maybe Spyro. Maybe Path of Exile 2. Maybe that one game that Kara actually gave me the code for. But I thank you all. I love all y'all faces. Happy hacking. And I will see you Wednesday. Wednesday is the next stream. So, see you around. Stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch. And also there will be a YouTube video probably coming out sometime this week about EU chat control and a bunch of other things. So, look forward to that. Love you all. Stay safe. Happy hacking. Stick around for the raid.